Hello everybody! Alright, welcome back to the show. It's time for another big old week of World of Warcraft news and also some interesting things to talk about. Sorry for the technical issues, that was fun. You may have noticed that at a point 50% of the frames are being dropped for our little intro loop. That was fun. Love computers.
Yeah, that's what happens when you change your encoding settings at the last second and hope it works. Don't do that.
Yeah, big yeah. So to kick us off, gonna wait just a minute for people to filter into the stream and everything. But there is a super chat from Joshua, so I'm thinking we should probably do that. So Joshua says that all player races are mammal-like, don't you? Other stuff. To which I say, yeah, that'd be cool. Also, could be expected. They're naturally just going to be limited to default bipedal sort of situation, right? Which means that you could get a bird person or a reptile person, but they're like a person for technical reasons. But that said, to answer that question, I mean, Nagas, Sethrak, Jinyu, Dragonkins, birds, right? Those Arakope. And then I guess space bullshit.
Yeah, they always have the potential to go, here's something you haven't seen before. Here's another planet that survived this under the Sargeras' rampage. It's got, well, I mean, I suppose they still have to be inspired by something, so I guess it is, fish, birds, reptiles, anything like that.
Yeah, it depends like if they were ever to go truly alien, but I think there is an issue there, and one of the reasons why fantasy races are almost always just some form of humanoid, and that is people actually emotionally connecting with their character. So there are loads of people who would like that, some like bird person or whatever. But for a lot of people, more just traditional like body plans and stuff like that's kind of what ends up working for a player character. I think for many, I don't necessarily agree. I mean, if we could get some wacky stuff. To mostly answer the question there, mostly if they were doing that, it would be like reused kits, like what they did with a bunch of the allied races. That said, I don't think any of the stuff is actually trying to think what's actually built up in the game, because this whole big point of data mining. Data mining from Battle for Azeroth, because when allied races were coming in, what people could do is they could go in to the files and they could rename a whole bunch of stuff. And they could change like the playable race ID to one of another playable race, which would then basically mean that you could like test out different allied races. And I think there were some non-allied races that would actually work with that system. So it could be there's something going on there. The Blizzard, they could if they really wanted to. But I kind of doubt it, to be honest. And like if we end up going to space, it's like, what are we going to get? I guess playable ethereals would be a sort of neat thing, but again, like they move pretty differently, they look pretty differently. How would they wear armor? Maybe the void ethereals, like they seemed a lot more like actually put together instead of just floating wisps. So who knows?
Yeah, there's definitely a place in the game for all of those races to be playable, but like you say, I think that the existing races are so set and so solid as parts of, excluding maybe the Vulpera as like existing parts of Azeroth.
We are major lag.
Are we?
We appear to be major lag.
Okay. I'll stop.
Are we dropping frames, everyone? So we'll see what they think.
Yeah. No, I've just killed the recording, so that should improve.
Interesting. So it was the recording. Yeah, it may have actually been that us simultaneously recording the stream in the hardware end and streaming it. That is what was doing it. So yeah. Thanks for the heads up. I think that's most of what I think for playable races.
Yeah.
The more the merrier, but I do think that a whole bunch of the community discussion right now is more centered around customizations. I think as much as it would be cool to see that, I think a lot of people, they would far rather be able to like make their character a proper manifestation of what they want versus just having another threadbare option. If you look at some of the allied races, the allied races come and some of them just don't have that many options. They don't have that many faces, stuff like that. So it's that sort of thing where the more that Blizzard would kind of go broad and races, like the harder it would be for them to pick everything up and make them good. But that said, so that was the question. Yeah, some more crazy stuff, some reptiles. Awesome. We do actually have, wow, everybody's really popping off in chat. I think that's what happens if you've got a whole bunch of stream lag. You know, everyone gets activated. A big thank you, though, to, I want to make sure I don't miss anyone. Oh my God, wow. Everybody's going ham. The super chats. We've got Thomas, thank you. We've got Whereas Marisov, who has joined as a member. My God, we got Nate Blevins coming in, and also Corey Steiner, who comes in with a question. So thank you, everybody. You know what? We'll do Corey's question, and then it'll be time for the news, because old Bobby's got us $200 million, and people are very pleased about it.
Of course.
So Corey asks, questing has become quite a bore lately. What would you do to spice it up a bit? Oh boy.
That's interesting. That's an interesting one. I'm gonna have to go to my recent time playing Classic to answer this one, which is very much make them significantly more difficult and like just more interesting in terms of here's a big thing to do. You have to figure it out. Actually give it some sort of meaning or some sort of gameplay involvement instead of the stuff that you can completely basically autopilot with the quest marker. Because I think that's what gets a lot of it, is no matter how well a quest is fed in through the narrative or how nicely the quest text is written, the entire game is just kind of behind you going, go, 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 go.
That's a really good point. There's something Blizzard have with quests right now where they don't make a video game with a lot of their in-game questing. And the times where they do go and make a video game with their in-game questing, those really stand out, because it's like, oh, suddenly we get our Warlock Greenfire, or, you know, we get like the more memorable things. It's so interesting what to do with that, because there's a whole bunch of people, if you give them harder questing, they're just going to, and this could actually be why Blizzard have completely lobotomized so much of that questing flow in World of Warcraft. You know, there were people you make questing actually be relevant, and, you know, by, I guess, more objective metrics or something, like good quality gameplay where there's stakes, you know, there is actual need of a mastery loop, all of those things. You know, Blizzard could do that, and then a bunch of people would say, yeah, but this is just a roadblock to me hitting endgame, so I don't care. Why would you do this? Leveling is something I should be able to crank out in 4.5 hours on launch night. Now, as much as we do enjoy doing the odd bit of speed leveling, we certainly, the pair of us on the PTRs and betas, we did like loads of characters and stuff like that. So we love that. But we absolutely, I mean, at least for me, it might be the same for you. I absolutely don't think that's how the game should be.
Almost certainly not. It's like all of the incentives are for you to not play the game correctly or to not enjoy the game. I think that's the way it ends up, especially after leveling multiple characters, where you're just going, oh, I will do, you know, the Azeroth autopilot route, or like the quickest one I possibly can to get through this like segment, but then you don't get to experience any of it, which even comes down to like when you're running to a location, looking at like a beautiful vista like panned up beside you, because you're too busy going, staring at the arrow, or at the arrow in your head going, oh, quest marker, go, 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 go.
Yeah, it's that thing of actually giving players freedom, right? Because you give players a bunch of incentives, you give them freedom to just go at it, and yeah, it can result in, over time, the standard default gameplay behavior of your game is not really fun. Like, it's completely goals oriented. And, you know, based on guides and the speed leveling and stuff like that. But it's not necessarily a great experience. And it's almost certainly not capturing the experience that the developers actually intended to build. So it's a funny little situation. And right now we're talking about leveling. I think there's more to talk about there once you get on to the questing that happens in endgame. For leveling, to be honest with you, what I would do, this is not what I necessarily 100% do, but there's a thing in my head where I'm sort of thinking, right, would it just make more sense to... Wow, that was incredible. My iPad has maybe died.
Nice.
The screen just flashed purple and a bunch of... Oh, it's restarting. Okay, cool. Chat, nice. I'll be able to read you in a minute. Oh, where was I? Where was I?
You're talking about leveling, questing, somewhere after that. I don't remember.
Leveling, questing. Yes, right. Here was my point. Because leveling to so many people is treated just as a pointless roadblock to doing a bunch of super gameplay oriented stuff. And that has a whole bunch of restrictions and things that it sort of imposes on the rest of the game, right? Like leveling has generally got faster and faster and faster as times went on. The level of challenge that you face is, I don't want to say it's lower and lower and lower and lower, but maybe it is. It certainly is quite low from my sort of perspective of it generally. There's a bit of me that would wonder, we call it leveling, but in that question, it was phrased as questing. Would it be a better idea to just completely throw away the idea of getting our characters from the past expansion to the cap of the current expansion via leveling process that involves going around doing zones? Would it actually make sense to try to get away from that idea and basically just say, hey, here's the new expansion, progress your character, and then you're sort of at your end game stage. And by the way, here's 5 Suramars, right? Just actually sit there and be like, this isn't just a pass-through leveling zone that you then return to do some world quests. No, this is like its own place. So there's a bit of me that would think that for what modern World of Warcraft actually is in reality, that something like that would be better, because it would basically mean that the people who want to go ham and level super, super, super fast, well, they could just do whatever the hell they want. It wouldn't really affect them because leveling would be sort of reduced in the overall equation. But for the people who actually do want to be immersed in the fantasy universe that is Warcraft, they could maybe get a more tailored experience. So that's a lot of what goes through my head when you're on that topic of how to actually make an engaging leveling sort of questing experience in World of Warcraft. For the more literal, just what do you actually do? I mean, I think mobs need to be harder.
Absolutely.
Mobs need to be harder. Rares and bosses and things like that actually need to be rares and bosses that have mechanics that you need to memorize to defeat. You're in that bit in Bastion or whatever, the Temple of Purity, the stuff goes down.
Yes.
You fight a sort of a mini boss fight.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really feel like much. And then I think about my Covenant campaigns, which I've mentioned in the show before, where it's like, I've just defeated the big bad of my Covenant campaign. I basically didn't notice. It's like that stuff. I mean, the end of my Covenant campaign, that could reach gameplay heights, maybe not Warlock Green Fire, because it couldn't be tailored to me specifically in terms of class or spec, but totally some kind of large experience there is possible with so many of these things. I think that would massively elevate the experience, and is basically what they should work towards doing. They had the stones to actually give us strong enough mobs to fight in the likes of Timeless Isle as soon as you went up. And I believe, if memory serves, even some of those Mists of Pandaria rares. Actually, yes. I remember a dev saying that those mop rares were super inspired by Dark Souls. I forget where.
Okay, that's a bit weird. But I remember leveling characters for the first time in Mists and not really knowing mechanics super well at that point. I think was this a mage? I think, and I remember there's a Pandaren rare. I can't remember her name or his name, but they're in a little pagoda in it's Krasarang or north of that. I can't remember which one. I think it might be Tanlong, but they just have this whirlwind kick that deletes you. And then there's also there's Pandaren in the cave, I think, in the Veil. And there's just a couple of these that I remember, because I remember going into this cave or cavern or spotting them out in the world going, yeah, I can take that, and then being tremendously proven wrong. And mostly because I haven't stopped a cast, or I haven't moved away, and it's just oh yeah, you just got obliterated. You're like, you know what? Yeah, that's so much more memorable than anything I've killed in Shadowlands so far.
Yeah, I basically agree with that, and it's just that thing, have the stones to actually do that, and try to do that as much as is possible. I never felt like my Covenant campaign was a bit of fun, engaging content for me to do, because it wasn't. It was lore events that I had to go through, completely mind-numbing stuff to get. But it absolutely could have been like almost any other video game where, you get your big cool lore events and stuff like that, but after a tough won battle, hard-fought battle, where you kind of feel like, damn, that was a hard-fought battle. I'm pretty hyped that I did that. But that said, World of Warcraft then has another little issue where it's like, how does Blizzard reward you for that? We killed N'Zoth and got 75 gold.
Yeah.
I think a part of this from Blizzard's end might be that the way that people are rewarded in World of Warcraft is stuff that equals player power, but if they sort of do that for all of the quests, then, for a lot of people, they expect, I face mild difficulty, I get some form of reward. And if that's not happening, then what do you do? Who knows? There could have been a situation where, like, it's anima or something like that, and you just get a whole chunk of it for doing the harder content. Hard to say exactly, but there's humongous potential, I think, is the basic thing here. Mm-hmm. And one of the best, not best examples, but a really good example was a few days ago, Matt, you were explaining to me, or you're reminiscing. Actually, no, you weren't. You were playing Classic like a few days ago or something.
Yes, yeah.
You're level 19. You're level 19 Druid.
Yes, so it was in the going from the Crossroads down to Northwatch Hold or Northwatch Keep, I think it's called Hold, as a level 19 Druid, sort of vaguely spec'd into Feral. So I have Bear Form and Maul, and that's how I need to fight, because I have basically nothing else. I run out of mana too quickly. And then, like, just making my way into Northwatch Hold, every mob was dangerous. Like, I could have auto-attacked one to death, but as soon as two came in, I had to actually either make sure I was rejuving myself and moonfiring them both, and fairy firing them for the extra, auto damage, or I would be killed. And because there were mobs that were patrolling, and there were, two mobs beside each other, another patrolling, if I timed the pull wrong, I had to leg it, or I was dead, or I had to hope for lucky, dodges and stuff. But it was like, that wasn't gameplay for me hitting all my keys really fast and using all my abilities at the right time and, getting a clutch tab target, interrupt off. It was just, I need to plan how I'm engaging with this small group of enemies. I have to do this 10 or 11 times to get in, kill the quest objectives, and then get back out. And I think that's what people like more about that style of gameplay, where it wasn't what buttons you press, it was how you approach the situation.
Yeah, it actually required you to basically look at the game world, to look at your surroundings and think about them.
Instead of the UI.
Instead of your UI, yeah. And that is, it brings me back to my initial leveling up in BFA, where I basically got bored out of my skull because the change in how my character felt from End of Legion to BFA was so stark. But I then realized the only way for me to actually have gameplay fun and a modicum of challenge when I level that character up was to do mass pulls with Storm, Earth, and Fire. And, Touch of Karma and all of that stuff. And that was the way for me to actually squeeze a little bit more fun juice out of that leveling experience. But I feel like that sort of stuff existed in a more cerebral, in some ways, and just more default manner in the previous version of the game, where, I was just doing these mindless gigapulls, just sort of daring myself and then going ham on all of my character buttons, instead of a little bit more, slow, considered, sort of looking around the world. And that, of course, I think about us in the Harpy area, to the north of the Barrens on Classic launch night, getting destroyed by those Harpies, where that was real small, tiny stakes, but we were on this very simple journey for our characters that was meaningful. And that really worked. That was a bit where questing really, really, really worked. And then I think to other times where questing have worked, when Blizzard changed, I think it was for patch 7.3.5, and this was another one of those times where I was sitting there saying, look, this is great. I'm actually fighting these mobs for a tiny sliver more, of time. Because before that, it was absurd. You practically would look at a mob and it and all of its friends would fall over and die when you were leveling before 7.3.5. And I remember just sitting there being like, this is great. They're actually putting a bit more gameplay back in this thing. And just having so many people say, oh my god, Blizzard have nerfed leveling, they've made it slower, they've made it harder to kill mobs, they've made it easier to die, this is terrible. They're just doing this to pad out the experience so they can get more subscription money by making leveling longer. And I'm just sitting there bashing my skull off the desk being like, oh my god, they moved 1 or 2 inches towards the design of things being better, and this is the bullshit they were hit with. Which I think really is saying that there's so many different games in World of Warcraft, and Blizzard have ended up setting up a whole bunch of expectations. And because there's so many games in World of Warcraft, and Blizzard kind of wants you to participate in all of them, it just leads to all those situations where you kind of feel like you're nagged into doing something you don't want to. Because for some people, leveling up a fresh character, and maybe in a world a bit more like Classic or TBC, where it's like slower and you can really die if you pull too many mobs, where you actually have to think about your gameplay when you're leveling. That's just a version of the game that, to the people who only care about the end game stuff, and are just there, the way they play WoW is pushing Mythic Plus keys forever, and that's just what they do. Well, to them, leveling up a character is just a boring thing that they don't want to do, in the same way that they, maybe don't want to go get Soul Ash and Torghast.
Yeah.
So it's a really tricky thing. It's like, you can't actually, other than the bits of content that WoW places on a pinnacle, which is raiding, Mythic Plus, and then sometimes PvP when they remember about it.
Yeah, there may be less pillars of endgame, more the top of the pillars.
Yeah, it's like, if something is not one of those bits of content that is put up on a pedestal as like, this is a premium slice of WoW content, it's like there's not the courage to actually have a full commitment.
Yeah.
Because I think they really do want people to see all of the content that is there.
Of course.
So it's really tricky. I don't really know how to get around that situation with a game that is as big as World of Warcraft, and with the player expectations being where they are. And I actually think that's one of the real powers of the likes of Classic TBC and Classic, because it's so agreed upon, like the player expectations. Yeah. And so many of those expectations are like a repudiation of what player expectations are for the modern game. And that kind of means that just that slower, more considered stuff is more acceptable.
Yeah, the way I would explain it is, it's actually it's the difference between being goals oriented and experience oriented, I think, because that is it was that very night I played a little bit of Classic, like just for like an hour doing one quest, and I actually felt the shift in my head as I was playing, because I logged in and went, oh, I'll hit 20, I'll get cat form, nice, maybe I'll eventually hit 60, who knows. But just as I was like starting the quest, I was like, I felt annoyed that I had to go so slow, and that I had to think about where the actual like boss enemies I was looking for were. And then at some point it just went, no, this is fun. I'm just going to play this for a while now. And I could feel the switch from I'm going to get 20 to I'm playing the game. And I think it's like, ultimately the player expectations on that front need to be deprogrammed down to the experience level again, but God knows how they'll get that accomplished.
I think that's really that is the struggle with World of Warcraft right now, where it's that sort of thing where the likes of us, MMO Champ, Wowhead, everybody who makes guides, all of that stuff, everybody who has a DPS meter, don't worry, I've had one like since forever, but like, we've all fostered this super not role-playing game way of playing a massively multiplayer online role-playing game, that I wonder if for a bunch of the developers at Blizzard, their personal thoughts are just kind of like, oh, we're passionate about this world, we're passionate about this story, we want to do all this stuff, but we're in this weird situation where what is World of Warcraft even anymore? And where it's just hard to actually dial all those things in. So it is very interesting that like somebody asks us one question about how could you make questing better in World of Warcraft, and it instantly goes into a big thing about like the fundamentals, the very fundamentals and essence of the game, the player expectations, that shifting over time. And I think that is more just to speak to how it's a bloody complex, hard thing, because if there is a version of Bastion that would take like 15 hours to complete.
Oh, please.
15 hours to complete. That was way harder way, way, way harder. Where like, you know, instead of doing really janky, you know, sort of in-game cuts, you know, the in-game sort of weird, they don't look good, and you know, you're not controlling your character anymore, so you're completely ripped out of the experience, and you're no longer looking at these events through your own eyes, and you just kind of get this bad cinematography floating about the place. I wish they just stopped those in-game cutscenes. They kind of suck. It's way better when, you know, you're just walking, like your character's just going, doing a thing, and, you know, Ural's beside you, just saying something. You know, you don't need to stick the camera in the character's face. But, you know, a version of Bastion that was way longer, that where all of those storylines were way longer and actually have way more character moments. You know, maybe somebody like Pelagos, another person we've talked about, you know, yeah, Pelagos' character arc just seems to be, you know, pathetic right up until near the end of the Covenant campaign.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like the over and over again is like, here's the problem with this character, that, you know, they don't have any self-confidence. They don't have any self-confidence. They have a little bit of that. And then at the end, it's like, oh, in the middle of the big battle of everybody, Pelagos is like, I can fight now. You're like, I know we spent a decent amount of time with Pelagos throughout like the campaigns, but it never felt like enough. It never felt like anything, and it was just rushed at the end instead of an actual like journey with little bumps along the way.
Yeah, there's something interesting to be said about the very, very like linear way that they do this the campaigns now. I mean, it's something I've praised in the past, and I generally do like from an experiential side of things. Like, I remember Shadow Moon Valley, and you're going through Shadow Moon Valley, you're getting a bit more invested in the story. It's got a pretty good pace, and it really just, it worked quite well as an experience, even though I think it still would have a bunch of the issues that sort of the game is, you know, struggling with today. I think it could be that for some people, the setting of Shadowlands is like inherently a bit weird and alienating. Whereas you're like, oh, I'm going back to where Velen and the Draenei, and oh, here's this Ural character that, you know, goes through the arc and whatever. Or maybe that like just worked better for people. It's kind of hard to say. We're in an odd space recently for the WoW narrative as experienced in gameplay.
Yeah, they've kind of done things, I don't want to say like poorly, but it's the concept of Shadowlands has been kind of abstract. All of the ideas of like the Tauren who, you know, the Kyrian who has got all the Tauren going around. It's like there is a clear through line for, oh, that's the memories, oh, you're dispelling their memories, hang on, that's their family, is this maybe a bit bad? Like, some of that stuff does crop up here and there, but it's hard to break through all of the abstract stuff that is thinking about, oh, this is the afterlife. What happens when death happens in the Warcraft universe? You're kind of thinking about all of that as this goes, and then you're doing this but in 4 super distinct areas, and it's like, it without any prior attachment to anything that's going on here, it all feels, I mean, we went, there was a very big difference between passing through the Veil into the Shadowlands and heading to, you know, going through the Dark Portal. The stakes were relatively similar on a grand scale, but something about the execution of what each place and what each thing meant to people was very different.
Yeah, I think some of that is basically just comes down to speed. Like, the core campaigns were really, really, really fast. I think Blizzard kind of knew that what would resonate well with a whole bunch of players is having these tight, fast campaigns that basically get all of the lore that you need to know and pretty much all of the XP that you'll need to level up.
Yes.
And then that's that. Whereas I guess there's a little bit of me, and, you know, maybe it's because, you know, Preach has been doing his RPG March and all of that stuff, and maybe some of us are thinking about experiences like that. Yeah, maybe if Blizzard felt like they had a little bit more freedom to just go super long in those stories. And I think, if I was to look back to what I sort of ranted on about a bit earlier, that's where I'd like to see more Suramars, because I think that's where Blizzard would actually have the freedom to make that stuff as expansive as they want without having to worry about a whole bunch of people wanting to level for the new expansion so they can do their endgame content and therefore want to just rush through. So they almost need to make this like rushable quest content. So a funny situation questing in the game. Yeah, I guess learn the lessons from Classic and is there a way that we could work out just the gameplay being a little bit more sharpened up? I mean, I'd be totally willing to have almost like a hard mode of going out my front door in World of Warcraft.
Of course.
I might actually be the player where, if you could work it out that I could just turn on hard mode and, I'm actually playing. And, then when I get to the boss in my Covenant campaign, it actually beats the shit out of me and gives me some mechanics I've got to learn. I mean, if you could give me even a hard mode for just the Covenant campaigns, then, perhaps we could actually get some more interesting stuff going on. Yeah, interesting.
That's a very good idea. I kind of like the idea of maybe not a hard mode for the full campaigns, because that seems a little bit out of scope generally, but they do so much work on all those set pieces, and they do some design for the set piece stuff. Like there are mechanics you have to do. They're just utterly pointless and really easy. So it's like if they spend another while balancing and getting a hard mode of those scenarios, which aren't called scenarios anymore, but
yes,
I think actually that might work. But I think if I had one bit sort of direction for Blizzard to look in for how to make gameplay feel a bit more engaging without being too hard or having like too high APM requirements, it is just make players think about where they're standing and make what they're doing feel a little bit oppressive and difficult, and have them like plan for it.
Yes, the sort of, in Classic, you've got the inevitability of white damage.
Yeah.
Right, the enemy's auto attacks. You kind of know that's coming. You're always playing around that. And then if an enemy just has one or two simple abilities and you are a little bit more pressured, yeah, you're shitting yourself. But, we're kind of like crazy Power Rangers now. So that doesn't happen as much because also it's the case that, a Mythic Plus dungeon with a Classic character, you'd run into severe issues, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, you can have the superpowered god character with so many different abilities and, like a modern WoW character. And yeah, they're going to cream the leveling unless the leveling is meant to really be a hard video game challenge, because a character with such a strong toolkit would need to be challenged pretty hard mechanically to make leveling a challenge. But that sort of character doesn't really work as well for the immersive leveling experience. But then you kind of like, that classic sort of way of doing things, classic TBC way of doing things, it wouldn't really work for the end game content of today as much.
Yeah, they certainly have more than a couple of problems to solve with the fact that everyone has so many tools all the time.
Yeah, it's like they almost need to have World of Warcraft, go, 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 G Fuel, Gunnar glasses, time trial giga mode, and then World of Warcraft slow for boring old people. Maybe we just call that WoW Modern and Classic Plus, and we just call it a day. But I guess that does also give you the sort of thing of, should we just be sitting here trying to work out ways that we could get classic-y things into Modern, when maybe the best thing is, instead of trying to shore up weaknesses or anything like that, maybe what's best is actually trying to double down on what makes Modern modern. And that is a totally other way of doing design. And one that equally will have its wins and its losses, but something to think about. We should, however, get on. We should get on with the show. Do want to say, Tony McHugh, thank you for the super chat and joining as a member. Also, Sam Polite said, kind of testing the waters. What's best gearing options for haste, or is haste even worth it outside of preference? What I'd say there is, personally, I really enjoy hasty characters all the time, but that's not really how World of Warcraft will work in realistic scenarios. Ideally, what you'd want to do if we're going to be, imagine this is a G Fuel. I've got some gamer shades on, and we're, I don't know, I'm wearing an esports jersey or something.
In your Secret Labs chair.
In my Secret Labs chair, that's it. Where, this entire room is just RGB everywhere. In that world, you go to raid bots. You install the SimCraft add-on, you type in /simc, then you copy that big heap of text, you throw that into raid bots, you click the stat weight button, and it will tell you what is best. Might be haste, might be crit, might be mastery, of course versatility if you're PvP. yeah, that's what goes on. And of course, stat weights are dynamic, so don't just like get a pawn string and leave it there forever. That stuff will dynamically change as your character's gear changes.
Yeah.
So okay, there is another super chat from Glaive, which I've queued up for the Control the Show segment that we do.
Okay, sweet.
Because WoW news is something that we should probably cover.
I would think so. Yes.
Yes,
certainly.
I'm going to kick it off with this one. So, old Bobby. He typically gets 30 odd million a year. Now, we should be fair to Mr. Kotick. That's not cash. He does have his salary component, and I believe the vast majority then is, the vast majority of his total compensation package, because apparently talking about Bobby's package is what we're doing today, it is in the form of stocks. Now, stocks, in order to, actually, buy something, you need to convert your stocks into monies. Into whatever your currency is, and of course, if you do that, you've got to. Well, I was going to say you've got to declare the taxes. I don't know. I think a man like Bobby can probably get around all those problems if he really wants to.
Almost certainly.
So there is that, but another side of it too is if you keep on like Bobby accruing humongous amounts of shares, then any time that a dividend is issued, bam, Bobby just gets a big old shot of the cash. So it's that sort of thing where the amount of CEO compensation as compared to the average or median whatever employee in a company it's a sort of thing that I believe in the past it was a bit more 5x, 10x, maybe 20x, which we can sort of see in the realms of reasonability. If you've got some large corporation, the person at the top at the end of the day, the decision that they make could impact the lives of so many people and so many shareholders, so many employees, all of that stuff. So, yeah, they should be well compensated because you want the best decision maker there. However, I believe in some of those US companies, the compensation ratio is now getting to like 200 or 300 times.
300x, I believe. It's the growth rate of CEO pay versus average worker salary has just been on the steadiest incline I think we've seen in quite a while. I mean, I'll see if I can bring it up here.
Yeah, can they? I don't think they can see the...
They should be able to, yep.
Yeah, there it is.
They should be able to. Yes.
Oh.
Yes, this is the one everyone likes to look at, which is CEO compensation's grown 940% since 1978. And does this have the graph? Yeah.
Yeah, up it goes.
That's with the S&P, obviously. Where's the other one? Yes. So that's CEO to worker compensation ratio. Whee!
Yeah, and it's one of those things where whenever there is I'm trying to find the right word to say this. It's like if... it's hard to put it right, but basically you do want there to be large incentives for stuff like this, but it just gets to the point where it's bloody insane.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine also a bit self-defeating because the impact of this has got to have on employee morale.
Yeah.
I mean... It seems absurd.
Yeah, at least in trying to speak to a wide variety of people like on this topic, because obviously people get really riled up over this, and I end up with not quite in fights, but I end up in let's say somewhat heated conversation with my friends over this, because I'm like, obviously a CEO has a lot of responsibility. They have like billions of dollars weighing on them at all times in every decision they make. Being paid significantly more than someone who's got like little responsibility obviously makes sense, but the fundamental problem isn't that CEOs are paid too much. It's that workers aren't generally paid enough by comparison, so it just looks bad. It's that kind of short-term thing.
Yeah, I guess it's that thing where ideally we'd all like to say a rising tide sort of raises all boats, but you're in situations where the CEO pays skyrocketing, but the employees are, it's yeah, if that was like the company's like returns and profitability shooting up like that, and then it's wow, the CEO is so damn rich, and then the employees are all doing super well for themselves as well, then that's a bit more okay.
Yeah.
But when that disparity just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it really seems like the rules that apply to optimizing the cost and the efficiency of the workforce, don't apply to the people at the top, that's when it seems like a whole pile of bullshit.
That's what I think you'd probably call corruption in a better world.
Yeah, it's like it may not be corruption literally because it's all like whatever, but it's corrupting. It is corruption.
Yeah.
Like I don't mean that in a very specific sense. I mean that in a like the foul forces of corruption weighing upon the realm. I kind of mean it like that. So yeah, this 200 million thing for Bobby, it's basically just a horrendously bad look because at the same time they got rid of 190 employees. I should say up to.
Yes.
But Jason Schreier, he did basically say that number, I imagine for a reason. And what's interesting there is it seems like they tried to pull a fast one on us.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty scummy. It's standard PR business. If you're a company like this and you can pull a fast one over people to suppress bad news, then you're going to do it. That's just how it works. But they initially said, we're laying off 50 people in esports.
Yep. Because
we're focusing less on live events. But then it turned out it was actually up to 190 people, not 50 people. And they just, they tactically informed us of the employment changes of one business department or something, instead of actually just saying what was happening. And then the final kick in the teeth there is the $200 Battle.net gift card that people got. And it's the sort of thing there where, okay, look, currency, what is currency? You can get into a whole big old discussion there. $200 of Battle.net balance. It's not $200.
Not even close.
Unless Blizzard sells you digital sandwiches or IOUs for a bloody sandwich, $200 in the Battle.net store. All that gives you is $200 worth in Blizzard's eyes of database entry manipulations and flags that they can put on your user account. So you see something like that, never think that it's generosity or anything like that. It would be stupid as fuck to think that. So what? It'll save some of your WoW sub, but I think for a bunch of the people are like, especially for many of them, I saw one guy on Twitter, he'd worked at the company for many years, and you're like, oh great, I've got the boot, I've got 3 months of severance, and $200 of Battle.net balance, which obviously is not something that's a good look. And I think they maybe do that because they want to seem like they're being nice externally, but I think to just about anybody with a brain, they see that and it feels cynical, right? Like, here's the thing. If you're going to give your employees $200 of Battle.net balance, fuck away off and give them $200 instead. Oh, wait, that would actually involve giving them $200 instead of just changing a database entry for their account that says they've got 200 virtual dollars, which basically don't exist.
Yeah. And also let's not ignore the fact that, if that's $200, you're gonna buy maybe Call of Duty for yourself. Now that you don't have a job, you have time to play Call of Duty. Maybe you'll buy it for a friend. Maybe you'll end up sometime down the line putting money into all of the recurring revenue. You're a monthly active user, so it's not that they're giving you a little bit of, it's going to be a hard time, go play Crash 4 when it launches on PC. It is basically, hello, we have downgraded you from employee to monthly active user, and we're just going to squeeze that last little bit out of you before you go.
Oh, that's funny.
And it's like, the audacity of it is shocking, because I'm pretty sure at least when people went down the mines and were paid in factory tokens instead of real money, at least they could actually get food with that at the cafeteria.
Yeah. At least they could use their mining equipment to beat people up if it got too bad.
Yeah, of course.
No, I'm not calling for a revolution or anything like that. Do not take that statement as any view of my own politics, etc., blah, blah, blah. Come on. But, yeah, you can't exactly... can't mount the resistance with their gift card.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, at least give him an Amazon gift card. At least I could get something useful with that. So, I mean, there you go. That's basically the news. They are optimizing units of their business, and it's a bad look. Now, I do want to come in here and say that actually, a CEO is somebody who can be paid to hire people. That's very important, hiring the right people. They also, a part of their job, maybe, is firing people and making those big decisions. And it turns out that if you truly do not want to be in live games, why should you be forced to be, why should you be forced to keep a live events team? Because what, firing them would give you bad PR? Like, if that's not somewhere where you think your business should be, why would you keep those people on? So I do have to then come in and try to be a bit more balanced with this, right? Because it's easy to use this as ammunition to sling mud at Blizzard and all that stuff. At the end of the day, if they don't want a live team, they don't have to have a live team. And even for the people who would be working on that live team, I mean, if you're in a company that doesn't even want to, literally doesn't want to employ you and is only, doing it to just keep you on so it doesn't look bad, then that's obviously not a good position for somebody's career to be in. It's also worth noting, and this is something I think has been really devoid of most of the coverage that I've seen, this is 50 staff. The costs of doing live events are a lot more than 50 people's salaries. You've got to get venues. You've got to get all of the gear. You've got to get contractors, security staff, craft services. So each one of those 50 people, if you think about the amount of money that is going to be spent, in many cases, based on the decisions that those people make, hiring craft services for a production crew, hiring a production crew, getting a venue. Yeah, so it's not just that they're being stingy to get rid of, a few people with that live events thing. It's like some of the cost of live events is salary, some of it's all the other things that go on. If they don't want to be there, they shouldn't have to be there. I would not advocate for a situation where, they're like forced to keep people on that they don't want to have on. I think the point here is that it feels so damn hypocritical whenever a business is, in a way, doing what a business should be doing, which is making sure it's a tight ship, that it's efficient, that it's not, that it's not allocating capital inefficiently. Ultimately, a business, one of the things that exists to do is to efficiently allocate capital to produce growth. And all of those things seem like absolute hypocritical bullshit when at the same time the CEO's getting 200 million because apparently, technically speaking, the 200 million is because of Activision Blizzard's stock performance over the last while. And that's essentially bonuses in his contract that he's unlocked. So that's why it's 200 million all of a sudden, when we were, used to a paltry 30 million a year.
Of course.
But it still does make it look, hypocritical and all of that stuff. So it's that sort of thing. You want to go in there and give the balanced take, the balanced opinion of how to actually think about a business without it devolving into screaming. But you kind of can't do that because, bloody hell, look what the top is doing. Look what the top of the business is doing.
Yeah, I think if, even with the argument that... Bobby's being rewarded for the stock price going up. The stock price continues to go up despite all of this decision. It's like clearly the interest of shareholders and the interests of the employees don't align. In an ideal world, they maybe should, but I think that's a very big discussion.
Well, what I would say there, Johnny says the point of a business is to make money. Are you new? Making money is like the output. So technically speaking, the thing that a publicly traded company has got to do is provide shareholder returns. And one of the way that a business makes money is by efficiently allocating capital. Because that's what you do. You've got your resources, you deploy them effectively. That's how you make the money. So I think the way that I would frame it is trying to be just a little bit more of a fine point on how a business actually operates. So that was basically the point there. And I think the only way to get around things like this is situations where the staff and their own personal fortunes are a bit more pegged to those of the company. Here, 10% profit share is what we do. I don't know what Blizzard does. I hear that, if you hit one of those more senior roles at Blizzard, that your bonuses can actually get quite chunky. But what we learned from some of those things that were filtering out last year is that while that may be the case for those, seniors and, the really more high up people, there's maybe a sort of lower class who aren't really getting that good treatment. I mean,
Almost certainly.
yeah, like the salaries that they're being paid are, from what I understand, way below what is average. And Blizzard actually does do a thing where they try to inflate total compensation by adding on a whole bunch of numbers for like the benefits and stuff like that you get, which I mean in a way is fair enough, but at the same time, like, you can't pay for your rent with benefits. And so I think that's most of that story. Basically, it's just a bad look.
Yeah, I have one thing I'll add before we move away. This was the story was initially highlighted because it was esports and live events people that were laying off, and there's a pandemic involved. But I think Bobby being rewarded for their stock price going up when the reason they have to move out of live events is because they've absolutely massively bungled the Overwatch League in so many ways since the dawn of time. I was literally just like, before we started, I was just listening to the Four Horsemen, the Inside on Esports guys, talk about it, and they do not have nice words to say. They really don't.
Yes, that does not surprise me in the slightest.
No.
Yeah, I mean, wild situation, but there you go. That's I think that's most of what to cover there. I mean, another thing you could say is that some of those, CEO numbers getting so insane. There's a bit of me that wonders if it's just like you kind of have this professional executive class of people, and that's why like Dennis Durkin is on 16 million a year, or something like that. Laura Miele, I think she's the head of studios at EA. Like if she was like, it was a 3.1 something million yearly, but then it went up to 16 million because she did actually seemingly do a good job. But wow, what a pay increase that was. And one of the analogies that I sort of had, and it's not a perfect one, but it's more just to say that whenever you have a supply demand thing and specific sets of skills and all of that jazz, you just get weird like micro economies appear sort of, and you think of like footballers and stuff. And like the amount of, footballers being poached from other teams and the insane salaries of those footballers get, the transfer sort of, the amount of money it takes to get a footballer from another team, the sell price, all of that stuff, where it's like completely bonkers to everybody else who's just residing here on Earth. But it's like its own weird ecosystem. Yeah. And it's almost like the CEO thing is its own weird ecosystem, but it's one that is pretty damn impactful to everything. And so, okay, we've done it.
Yeah, we've covered one story.
One story.
We'll get there. So what is next on the docket? Yes, it is the job listings.
Yeah, sure is the job listings. So, look, there's really not a massive amount that we could give you for this story in terms of specifics because it is all very new. But as you can see there, they're hiring for a new project. It is unannounced. A bunch of the people who seemingly are working on this project have been tweeting about how it is basically the best thing they've ever worked on, which, I mean, fair enough. If it truly is the best thing they've ever worked on, then I guess that bodes pretty well for whatever this game may be. We know it's an action FPS. We basically don't know anything else.
Yep. The only other thing we know is that people are losing their minds by going, it's StarCraft Ghost again. Let's go. It's back. But that's somehow I don't think it.
I don't think we're getting StarCraft Ghost. Sadly.
No. Although it is interesting considering it's an action FPS. It's like, you would imagine they would do something in the FPS realm, continuing Overwatch, but if it's unannounced and Overwatch 2 isn't out yet, it's clearly not. So it's, I guess, given what, was it J. Allen Brack or was it? It was J. Allen Brack who talked about new IP in the work.
Yeah.
I imagine any unannounced projects like this are, in fact, unless they're mobile, they're probably going to be new IP. So I guess they're it's interesting because what FPS, actually, this is a good way to narrow it down, I think. What FPS can they make that they would greenlight internally that would not impact with any of their existing business segments? Because, Blizzard aren't, like, people at Blizzard aren't going to go, hello, we would like to make the new Call of Duty, please. Like, or, we're going to make a Call of Duty-like game. Activision just go, no, you're not, sorry. They're going to have to veto that. Same with Overwatch. They're like, hello, another class-based shooter? Nah. So I guess, like, the question is, what's left in the shooter realm that they could do? And I don't want to say Half-Life. I don't want to say a really nice single player shooter because I think I might be getting my hopes up too much.
Yeah, I would love to see stuff like that happen, like more, I don't want to say daring, but just single player,
Yeah.
very experiential storytelling driven stuff. I'd love to see stuff like that. It's hard to know. I mean, Overwatch is Overwatch. I imagine other things could exist within the Overwatch world. That's a world that is probably humongous because it was Project Titan for a long time, and I imagine they have a lot of world building, a lot of stuff that they just know about that. Now, another thing for other like for like new IPs, I'm not going to say that it's going to be like totally new blood doing it, but you know, Overwatch, that was born out of Titan failing, and that was still Chris Metzen being the big head honcho of, you know, world and story at Blizzard. And it seems like a bunch of him is where StarCraft and Warcraft and Diablo and Overwatch came from. And those are all still Blizzard's big things today. So there's a bit of me that looks at that and thinks, it's Blizzard doing a new IP, but it's a different Blizzard because a lot of people have moved on. I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I mean, like, it seemed like the reason why Chris Metzen left is because dude was burnt out, and you know, now he's doing he's doing his board games and RPGs, and he's probably going to be a happy man for it. So I'd expect there's more room for it being different because just so much time has passed from this seed of so much of the Blizzard games that we have right now. Somebody points out Metzen had a little to do with Diablo. I think he was involved in I mean, obviously I know it was Blizzard North. I think he did have some like narrative involvement and stuff like that.
I would imagine, given how small they were when they worked on that.
Yeah, and then for D3, I mean, he was pretty massively involved in D3, of course, which is why D3 did not feel like D2 from a narrative perspective, I guess. So yeah, hard to know what this new thing could be. I think, we both know what we would want. You know, when we think of a lot of great action FPSs, we think of the likes of, you know, really experiential things like your Half-Lives and your Bioshocks. I don't really think that's going to be Blizzard's speed. I think that Activision Blizzard overall gets the most money from multiplayer.
Yeah.
Now, it is worth saying they've had incredible single-player experiences come out with like Spyro and Crash and, you know, a bunch of the stuff going on there. But I find it hard to see like a humongous new investment in a single-player only game. I mean, could that just be me still having the cynicism of, you know, Star Wars 1313 being cancelled, Star Wars Amy Hennig game being cancelled, you know, it seemingly being that those things were on the down. So I just don't know what Blizzard would do. I have so little of a sense of what a new shooter from Blizzard would be.
Yeah, that's the thing. I can only think about it like logically or clinically, trying to rule out like business decision wise, or trying to think about stuff, but I can't like creatively delve in and go, oh, what can they do next? It'll just be like, it's going to be a multiplayer shooter, but it's within these confines of things that doesn't overlap with their other experiences. And that's kind of, I mean, I suppose you could read a little further and say, what would new-blooded Blizzard, who have a lot to prove and want to kind of stray away from the old stuff, what would they do? But then they're at Blizzard. They probably have a deep reverence for existing properties as opposed to a desire to like rebel away. So I think I think the answer is we will just have to wait a very long time to find out.
Yeah, probably. So overall, that's going to mean that, you know, your more immediate time frame, like 2022, 2023, I think we'll see Overwatch 2, 2022. We'll see Diablo 4, 2023, probably. Certainly have to be, I think.
Yeah.
And then that means, what is Blizzard going to be doing in, you know, beyond 2023? Because Riot exists. They're doing an MMO now. They have many other games. Mike Morhaime, he's got Dreamhaven with 2 studios. Frost Giant exists. There are other, Blizzard's sort of ex-Blizzard people companies. There's a lot of competition out there. You know, you've got Tencent setting up AAA studios. You've got quadruple A studios appearing about the place. So Blizzard needs to be working on these big hype new things. And I think that means that we're probably going to be seeing, you know, WoW obviously continuing.
Of course.
You know, with its classic projects probably lasting another good, another maybe 4 years or do 2 more. I mean, maybe do up to MOP and then stop for classic. That could be one way to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
certainly there's a lot of PvPers that would appreciate Cataclysm PvP.
Yeah.
So they could probably do that for the classic project. But then beyond that, it's like, what are they going to do? I mean, you got Diablo expansions, you've got ongoing Overwatch content, but like, is StarCraft going to come back? I would love that, but I kind of doubt it. So what's it going to be? It's going to be shit like this, right?
Yeah.
These new exciting things. So I think that's basically what's going on for the future of Blizzard. Another thing I should mention, this is likely an earlier on project, and the overall context to take this in is us knowing that they want to hire between 2,000 and 3,000 new developers, I believe, between now and 2023. And now that is across Activision Blizzard, which technically means it can include Activision Publishing, Blizzard Entertainment, and King, makers of the Candied Crush.
Although interestingly, they did lay off in that like 190 layoffs. I believe King developers were included. So I think they might actually be trying to tone that down a little tiny bit, or maybe be more efficient with it.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But whatever's going on now, it seems like they want to juice that with a big old headcount increase as the time rolls on. Okay, on to our next story.
Yes, the next story is a lot of stories because it is 9.0.5.
Yeah, I mean, for this, I kind of want to go through it quickly because I don't want to just be lost in the weeds forever.
Yeah, for sure.
Basically, and look, if you want to get the full catch up for like the tweaks to the dungeons and the Nathria balancing, you can check out the WoW News episodes tomorrow. It's kind of nitty gritty stuff to go through now. One of the big things though that happened is that Valor is now awarded immediately upon completion of a dungeon instead of looting from the chest. And that is because it used to be, after the patch came out, that somebody could complete a Mythic Plus dungeon, not get their loot at the end because they hadn't clicked in the chest yet, be booted from the group. So basically this is griefing. They'd be booted from the group. And because of how the system works, Valor points would not appear in the mailbox, but I believe gear still could. If you went and completed the dungeon. So it was basically a way to dick people over. It has now been resolved. So there we go. But that's actually not it for issues though. Invis pots, they're still broken. I think the last that I heard, Stampeding Roar could still break invis pots. A few other things as well. It was to do with stacking buffs, I believe.
It was buffs that stacked outside combat was the initial culprit. And I think there's a couple other things. I can't remember. I know Dakar was talking about it because I left a big rage post in the Discord about it because it happened to him earlier today. But I can't remember what it was in particular. But it is a case where invisibility bots, they clearly can't just fix them in one go. It's like a developing sort of deeper rooted glitch, I think.
Yeah, and it's a really bad issue. It's one that does not affect me. Don't really think it affects you because that's just not the content that we do. You know, we're raid stuff. We're raid stuff, but right now we've not been playing as much World of Warcraft because we've just been really busy, like basically setting up the stream and setting up some longer term World of Warcraft video projects that will be there for you guys to enjoy. So it doesn't impact us, but for people for whom Mythic Plus is the thing that they do, I mean, invis pots are key. They're really important. This is going to mess up people's runs, change their strategies, all for a bug. I mean, rough.
Yeah,
that shouldn't be there.
It's brutal. It's brutal for anything like 10 plus because that's when you'll start to see more of the strategy. They're like, okay, we will invis pot this because people are generally more engaged with what the best route is. But it's like, especially when you go up to like the really high keys, up to the 18 pluses, up to the 20 pluses. To time those, if you don't invis pot a bad trash pack, you will just lose minutes to actually having to kill it.
Yeah.
So it's like because of how the time spent on a pack scales up, it becomes extremely important at that level. And then it's like, oh yeah, sorry, since patch 9.0.5, we know you'd really love to do very difficult Mythic Plus to get your Valor gear, but we broke the thing that enables it. Sorry, our bad.
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, like, I don't hold it too much against the actual devs.
No,
I mean,
not at all.
Shit happens, and it is very hard to test things. But obviously, I can say that. But at the same rate, a bunch of paying customers are also having their entertainment experience be somewhat diminished, which kind of sucks. Speaking of entertainment experiences being somewhat diminished, as I peek everything out of the microphone,
Yep.
Blazing Ingots. Do you love blazing ingots, Matt?
Oh yes, I remember doing that quest when it was fine and being annoyed.
Yep.
Never mind now.
Do you like right clicking?
Yep.
So here's your TLDR. The blazing ingots would, in the maw, of course, in the maw quest. The nice thing about them is they would drop on the floor, and you could click on them. And if somebody else clicked on them, they wouldn't despawn, right? Or at least they wouldn't despawn for a bit. So loads of people could use the same node. Now, this is the sort of thing that makes sense in a post-Legion World of Warcraft, because in Legion, they basically started being a bit more Guild Warsy with their outdoor world tagging and looting rules. Generally to make stuff be less competitive and a bit more cooperative. This is not that. You loot it, it's gone. Now, does that make more sense for the Maw, where these are, limited resource in a very, very spooky zone? Yeah, it does. Gameplay-wise, is it fun spending 10 minutes trying to find some blazing ingots? And this is where it's really odd, because in WoW Classic, a lot of people are going to say yes. In WoW Modern, a lot of people are going to say no. And I suspect it's because all that this quest is a barrier towards somebody's goal, because they're getting that to get their Venari rep, even though they actually don't give a shit about Venari, because they only want to get it for, like, sockets and their other things that they feel like they're just being kind of bribed into doing. And I think that's why there is a feeling of resentment from some people anyway, whenever changes like this happen. And I actually think that something that's perfectly analogous, not perfectly, but a bit analogous to this, is World Quest Group Finder going away.
Oh yes, that old piece.
Old chestnut, yeah. Which I bring that up because, and look, I've long been in camp. World quests are boring, so it shouldn't be a new thing to anybody. But for a bunch of people, right, they would get World Quest Group Finder and they'd be like, boom, 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 boom. They would just destroy World Quest, because World Quest Group Finder would take 2 seconds. And then World Quest Group Finder goes away in the BFA expansion, and a lot of people aren't enjoying it. And you think about why, and it turns out it's because all the removing the hack, I don't mean the hack, but the quick fix, the life hack to doing world quests. You remove the life hack, what are you left with? The world quest. And it turns out people didn't like him that much. So I think it's kind of a similar thing going on.
Yeah, I just thought of a really strange analogy for how that kind of feels. It's like, imagine you leave your apartment block or your house or wherever, and there's just a gate, but the gate's always open. So, or like maybe not open, but it's unlocked, so you kind of you swing it a little bit, you swing it outwards and go on with your day and leave it. But then, say you live in an apartment complex, suddenly landlord's like, no, this has to stay locked all the time, and you have to get, like, here's the key that's really fiddly, and unlocking it's really annoying. So now you're coming out every day, and instead of this this non-issue, you're just sitting there fumbling the key, but like, oh, I just need to get to work. Please.
Yeah.
Please. It's basically that, but for your video game.
Yeah. And I think in a way, it almost says less about, and the reason why I brought up Classic is it says less about the content and it says more about the player and their engagement and their experience, because you throw a situation like that at a Classic player and it's far more normal and far more reasonable to their eyes and expected. But you throw that at a modern player and it is suddenly newsworthy enough for, you go into the mall, you look at general chat. That's what it's going to be. There's going to be articles about it. It's going to be mentioned in videos. Oh, that's happening right now. Yep. And I think it speaks to maybe the accidental theme that answering that super chat at the top of the show did, which is, I guess it kind of set today's show on a theme of like player expectations and ways the players' experience is different, how they engage with the game. And I think it's issues like this, little things like this, that offer us such an interesting like transparency and insight into it. Like it'd be very easy to just say, oh, people just want it easy, they don't want anything, blah, stupid story. But no, I totally disagree with that. I think there's so much to dive into with things like this.
Yeah, I mean, like, compare this to what it would feel like if you were in... This is going to be a strange example because I don't really think it exists, but imagine it's like a multiplayer Hitman game, and it's like first to get the target, or you have to, you have to pick up items that other players can get, but, you're actually... A part of gameplay is waiting for this thing to pass, waiting for, like a guard to pass to sneak in and get it. but you're racing the other guy. So the other guy's like, are they going to push their luck? Are you going to push their luck? You have a game, you have gameplay, you have things that like that's what's fun about it. But the part that's fun about the Blazing Ingots quest is handing it in, and then either being done with it, if you're like, I just want to get this over with, or seeing all the numbers go up and go, yeah, I've got more rep now, great. It's like that's fundamentally the core problem is people don't want to play a quest where they're going and grabbing ingots because they want to do the other thing, and that's about the player as opposed to the game. Because I mean, I can see a world of player expectations and like the almost the exact same mechanics being somewhere else and being fine, but it's not what people want or expect out of this. So
that's it. It's all about the framing, the context. Yeah. That's what ends up mattering so much about all this stuff. Mm-hmm. So with that done, I mean that is basically like that's kind of it for the WoW news. Yeah. There are little things like the charity pets out. There's a few other stories like that, but it's not particularly important or really interesting to talk about stuff. And that's why what we plan to do is have two little discussions before we do control the show. Thing number one is 9.0.5. What is the state of World of Warcraft right now? And the other one is 9.1. What does it have to do? What's going to actually be good there? Because right now, there's interesting sentiments floating around about Shadowlands. So the next thing we'll tackle after this is, what can 9.1 do to actually win those players back? What are the sort of just constructive things to talk about there? So 9.0.5. What's the state of WoW right now?
That's a very good question. It's a little messy, but relatively okay. Looking at it from like the complete outside perspective of like if you picked it up now, it's more than fine in terms of everything, or outside of Invispot bugs.
Yeah.
And outside of a couple, there's a whole lot of problems with like getting alts with having to go through Torghast, having to go through them off for things. But generally speaking, it's all right. But the problem is it's been 9.0.5 is 9.0.2 with a couple of improvements, but with nothing else. Yes. So it's like. It's better but bad. That's the wild interesting thing. Because I remember we were talking about this a while ago, where we both agree that the game is other than Invispots, the game is objectively better now. Yeah, 100%.
Like if this just launched like 9.0.5. If Valor points were there for Mythic Plus at launch, it would have been awesome.
Fantastic.
But that's kind of it. And what I find interesting about that is Blizzard have given, I think, people an objective upgrade. A really, something that just plain makes the same shit you were doing yesterday or last week more rewarding and with you having more control. So it is an objective improvement. But it almost seems like it wasn't enough and there wasn't content. So a lot of people were like, oh yeah, well, it's not enough. So sort of fuck you. A little bit. Because, man, I don't know if you were surprised. I was a little bit surprised at how some of, we do, basically, right, and it's even happened today, today's stream or stuff like that, but if we put 9.0.5 in the title of anything, views are gone. Yeah. It's like a wet blanket. And I think it's weird. It's a wet blanket, even though we're both sitting here being like, yeah, this is better. And even though, like last week in the live show, we said that, yeah, or maybe it was the week before, but that maybe this is actually a pretty okay time to start playing the game if that endgame stuff's what you want to do, because it's all just better. So it's interesting. They've made an objective improvement, but in a way, for so many people, it seems to be such a too little, too late situation that they're almost pissed that Blizzard tried. I do and don't understand it.
Yeah, well, I think this might actually help understand, because I'm going to go back into analogy land, because that's where I live, especially for food. They've brought you 9.0.2 was, hello, here's your dinner. It's whatever sort of pretty good dinner you can imagine, be that tendies and fries or a Sunday dinner, whatever. And then they've went, oh, you're done, okay. And here's the same again, but with it's a little like your meat's a little better cooked, the spice mix is a bit nicer, throwing a bit of salt on top. Here's a nice drink with it. You're like, yeah, could I have had this before that? Because I don't want it because I just had that. Can I have something different? I think that's what it is.
Could I side grade the analogy by saying it's almost like they gave you your after dinner mint, but you were expecting dessert? Like what a lot of people are expecting is like, where's the thing to do in my character new? This is going to be fun. But instead you got this tiny little thing. But what's actually in people's minds is, what's the new thing I can do? What's the new reward that I can get? Because I guess the reward loop outside of just getting gear for your character has... I actually think that the gearing reward loop has maybe underperformed a little bit. There is a discussion to have there where basically I think that the Great Vault... the Great Vault, I think it almost creates this weird expectation sort of player experience like issue.
Or the fact that your weekly reward is the be all end all of gearing as opposed to whatever else you do.
Yes, that would be it.
Yeah. Nice. Nailed it.
It's like a little bit less so now, but hey, not if you want a 226 Mythic Plus bit of gear.
Yeah.
So it's like for the state of WoW right now, 9.0.5, it's like it's objectively better, but in a way, loads of people don't give a shit. And it seems to me anyway that, it seems to me that the issue, and I don't want this just to be the show of, oh yeah, when's Michael going to go and talk about reputations again in every bloody episode, but it seems to me that like gearing only can go so far before it's no longer a fun, exciting thing. Yeah. So all we really want is a path to BIS that we feel like we've got good control over, where we feel like, our time is respected by the game, and, it's all above board and shipshape. But then it's the after BIS situation, or, I don't mean BIS in an objective sense, I mean your personal BIS. Because in a way, my character's nowhere near BIS, but I've just killed Heroic Denathrius. That is my goal for this tier. I may as well be at BIS for all that I care, because I've completed my goal. Now, naturally then, the thing that you'd kind of want to do is wander off to do the other bits of content in the game. And what's tricky there is, I didn't do the Covenant campaign because I wanted to do the Covenant campaign. I did it because I needed renown and it was a part of my intended progression path. And also it had good lore. It had good lore, odd pacing, and really no gameplay. So it's not like it was that great of an experience, anyway. So it's like, that's one of the things that surely once I reach my own personal BIS with gear, that's something I should be excited about doing. Those Covenant sets, something I should be excited about getting. Torghast, something I should be excited about doing. We were both big Torghast champions. I think we would both say that we entirely agree with what we said in the past.
100%.
But that it didn't play out that way.
No.
Because of, people, in a way, being bribed into doing Torghast for Soul Ash.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say bribe is because the way to make Torghast good is to make me want to do it because it's awesome. And that means I don't go there for Soul Ash, I go there for doing Torghast, and that just means Torghast having its own progression system, blah, 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 all that standard roguelite stuff. Yeah. So it's kind of like the Torghast thing didn't really work out for being a side form of gameplay to do. It's like, I thought that I would be excited to roll an alt and experience Torghast with it, but I'm not, because to get more stuff from Torghast, I'd have to send my alt through the mod to get Stygia. I don't want to do that. Now, if Torghast was a self-contained gameplay system that you could just go and do, and was just an awesome thing in World of Warcraft, then, then I could do that in a fresh character. But now I can't, because I need to, get ready. Somebody said, why the obsession with BIS? That's not me saying, like, an objective BIS. Like, my point there was, personal gearing goal. For a lot of people, BIS doesn't actually, in my opinion anyway, for a lot of Mythic Raiders, it obviously does mean BIS. But for many people, BIS, and the idea of achieving BIS, it's like, in a world where you can achieve BIS, that is a world where you can set goals and attain them. Even if it's not literal BIS, as Raidbot says, I can just say to myself, I want enough gear to kill Denathrius. I'm going to go work towards that, get that gear, kill Denathrius. And that was awesome. We had, all of our nerd screams in our Discord. It was a great experience. That's kind of what I mean there. So I think what 9.0.5 is revealing is that, yes, there's issues with the Mythic Plus gearing system that some people are not super happy about, sure, whatever, but that actually, for the broad World of Warcraft gameplay, beyond the gearing stuff, Torghast has had issues where I could be doing a Suramar in Legion right now. It does not exist. Where Legion's patch 9.1, pretty much already would have given us a Mega Dungeon and the Suramar campaign. We do not have that yet. So I basically think we had that situation where the initial gearing, because your goals were so clear and the gear sources were so clear, and you're doing things like the unranked, gearing system, that just worked awesomely. But then it's like once you're on the more regular, do your weekly stuff, just that gear treadmill, it's like you need more there.
Yeah.
Somebody there just said something about everything everything ties back to gearing, so if that sucks, automatically everything else does. I see. What I'd say there is not everything should tie back to gearing, because if gearing has to tie to everything, it'll suck.
Yes.
In a way.
Yeah. So I kind of had this like visualization in my head for like the how the game feels versus how it should feel, and it's like we need side quests when our main quest is the gearing loop, which is you start at freshly dinged. Your goal is strong enough to complete all your objectives. And then you can that opens the gate into doing those objectives. But you need a lot of side quests to break up the monotony of the gearing loop, especially when the gearing loop becomes you log in. If your goal is gearing, you're going to do Mythic Plus, or if it's not your guild's raid night, you'll try to pug a raid, Mythic Plus, maybe PvP, if that's if you can do that as well as everything else. But it's just we need more little things to stop off on that actually feel important, but without being tied into this single path. It's a single path that, as it stands, is just kind of zigzagging a little bit as you do content you really couldn't be bothered to do. But it's it's all on this. It's the same linear path, kind of, which is the gearing loop. But what would work better is if it was a straight line and then you have little branches off I could go in the straight line when I log in. Go do Mythic Plus, get some gear, go raid, get the trinket that I need. But I'd rather have a side path that I can go, oh, no, today I will do... It's like when you log it, it's when you play The Witcher 3, and you're like, I couldn't be bothered with the main story. I'm going to go try out side quests. It's that kind of thing, I think, is what other content actually does.
Yeah, that's where we're having an odd situation, because the start of the game, people find a mount guide. They're like, great, we're just going to get all these mounts. There's a bunch of stuff to do. Mm-hmm. But... it's that thing where it's mounts are no longer an exciting reward for many people in the game, and we just need to work out. I think Blizzard need to work out. What are those ways of rewarding people that are not gear, because we just can't put everything in gear forever. I should mention, somebody did correct me. Your Venari Torghast upgrades are of course account wide.
Oh, of course,
I'm stupid as hell.
Yeah.
I guess that generally the reason why I actually that layer change really does help it. Quite a bit, actually, because previously one of the things I did not want to have to do is regrind layers for fresh alt, so that is actually a really good thing for 9.0.5. So there's that with the Venari things. I'd say there for Torghast, I would like it that Torghast was progressed by doing Torghast, and it would almost be like a side game that I could just go and play in another character where the other stuff doesn't matter as much. I'd kind of like a little bit more in that direction than where we are right now.
Kind of a little bit like Horrific's vision was with the coins being in that upgrade loop, in that talent tree. So you did, you went into her vision. Next time you went in, or after doing 5 runs or so, the next time would be different, would be easier. You would feel stronger there. It's like Torghast is kind of missing that because they blended Torghast and the Maw. They kind of robbed Torghast of having that feeling of progression. Yeah,
I wonder what a Torghast what would Torghast look like if the mod didn't exist in the game?
Ooh.
It's I think probably more interesting and more standalone. I mean, it would obviously be standalone if the mod didn't exist.
Yeah.
So, I think not to bring it to a close, but maybe to bring it to a close, the thing with 9.0.5 is that World of Warcraft is... like, I think if you're a raider, you're having a pretty great time. If you're a Mythic Pluser, you're having a better time now that the gearing's been upgraded. Yeah. A lot of people really do care a lot, and some of that is in principle, and I actually agree with the principle, but a lot of people do care a lot that, those extra 6 item levels to hit 226, that's in the random box. I agree with those people. I think that's a bit silly it being like that.
Yeah.
But, like, it's for those endgame people. I think they're generally fine. It's just that where's the other things to do? And I think that's where, you see the 41% of players leaving.
Yeah.
I saw some pushback. People saying that the 41% didn't actually mean anything, that, it's all good and fine. Well, here's the thing. If Shadowlands had a larger than normal launch and then returned to the same baseline, that's not good. If it had a larger than normal launch and the same retention rate, then it should have returned to a higher baseline. Now, of course, that's all assuming that Super Data's numbers are accurate and stuff like that. Yes. But I think it's that lack of a broad, non-gearing based thing. And frankly, Shadowlands just not having a lot of content.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I think is the fun
side thing.
That's the fun thing about 9.1. Or sorry, 9.0.5, as I'm concerned. I may have spoiled my point here. But the people who really enjoy the end game and are continuing to engage with it, even this late in the season, where, like most players who are in for ahead of the curve and have been playing since launch have it. Most players who are in for like Keystone Master, especially if they're in a group, probably have it already. And they're kind of, if you're goal oriented that way and you don't really want to play that game further, then you just buy out. You're like, all right, see you when there's more content. But 9.0.5, all of those players who are still in and still engaged with that loop, with that kind of playstyle, will feel all of the benefits pretty quick, because it's tailored for those systems. But where the majority of the player base, I think, will feel 9.0.5 won't actually be until 9.1, because it's like they've tidied up a lot of the back end, a lot of the system stuff. So once they give it a fresh coat of paint and it actually feels new and there's stuff to do, then all of that stuff will make the game feel significantly better. It's just, it's impossible to feel now because there's no thrust to actually like engage with it or enjoy it.
Yeah. I think it's just pretty obvious that the pandemic really hurt them, and that's something that we can't really blame them for. Yeah. Like, we're going to see any internal issues that Blizzard faces for World of Warcraft so much more transparently than internal issues they'll face for Diablo 4. Yeah. Because we're playing World of Warcraft right now, and we can compare it to Legion, or we can compare it to BFA or whatever, and if Shadowlands is slower, it's obvious. So it's that thing where that pandemic rush meant that it was a bit of a sloppy launch in a few regards. It wasn't all perfect. It's meant that this patch has been needed to clean up a few aspects, and that's all certainly good stuff. But it also means that 9.1 is definitely further away than we'd like.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I kind of thought it would have been on PTR already. I guess next week. I mean, yeah, it's just that thing where the people for who raid logging is a fine thing to do, like myself, we can still sit there and have fun with the game. But I think for a lot of people who want a lot more out of World of Warcraft right now, they're going to struggle to get it. And I think that's what takes us on to patch 9.1. Our next segment, today's stream. Oh my god, how exciting. And actually, exciting, 9.1.
Literally, yes.
I'm literally excited for 9.1. As much as there can be a lot of doom and gloom on these streams because of, Bobby Kotick having a big bonus and, us being in just that bit of WoW. 9.1 I'm genuinely excited for a few different reasons.
Yeah, it's like I said, a lot of players, especially like I'm one of them, I will feel 9.0.5's improvements big time once I get into 9.1 and I can engage with that loop and feel like, oh, this is new content, I'm enjoying all the content. Oh, why does it all feel like notably better now? Oh yeah, all those changes from back in March that I didn't care about at the time, they're actually relevant now. So it's like that was a lot of effort spent that will pay dividends whenever we get to this, I think.
Yeah. I wonder if it will for Alex Richardson in chat, who says, the grind is much worse. I'm only speaking from a casual perspective. I mainly do world quests and anima quests.
Oh, yeah.
Fair enough, Alex. Fair enough. Doesn't sound like a great time.
Yeah, no, I actually remember being really weirded out whenever Shadowlands launched, because I was so used to gearing from World Quest in Legion BFA being like, oh yeah, you can actually kind of technically do this if you log in over and over again. And if you log in every day, there'll be like a new thing. It'll be slightly better. But whatever way that worked with it being gated with renown, and also with how the scaling of the rewards actually worked, and the reduction in number of rewards, at least I found from the last World Quests overall, I found that gearing from World Quest is basically like, it's something I would maybe occasionally do in alts, but I just don't. It's never high enough to be an upgrade for me.
Yeah.
And that's like kind of killed, I guess, for a lot of that. Like, log in, do some single player content for 20 minutes a day crowd.
Yeah, well, Renown, in a way, Renown ruined the way I wanted to gear my character up. Like, I wanted to gear my character by just grinding BGs and getting used to PvP. But the item level caps,
Yes.
it was like, I think to get to the item level that I wanted from that honor gear, it was like 4 weeks too late. Because that item level would have been pointless by the time Mythic Plus and all that stuff had opened up, and we could start going into raid. And that was just the thing where it's like, that could have been a way that I would have played the game a lot more, but I couldn't, because arbitrarily it was just time gated by Renown. And as we covered before, Renown is not a battle pass or anything like that. It's just a time gate.
Would be better if it were a battle pass.
Yes, it would be better if it was a battle pass. I think that may not be the direction we'd want the game to go into, but as a thing, it would be better and more engageable like that for sure. Yeah, kind of funky, I guess. And when we're talking about your anima and our world quests, and there was somebody else who said here that they're worried about 9.1 because they don't want another Maw zone. They hope that Korthia is something unique. That's Kay in chat who says that. The Maw sucks, is what they say. And I actually kind of agree with the Maw not being great. I don't think it's a great experience. I just don't think it's fun, and I'm never there for a reason that's got to do with it.
Yeah.
It's not like I go to the Timeless Isle to do Timeless Isles. Like, no, I'm going to the Maw sort of begrudgingly. I mean, I'd say that if I actually went there, I just didn't bother. I was like, extra sockets on my gear, I won't need that to kill Denathrius. I don't care. As long as I can be decent and it's that thing. Me not doing any of that try-hard stuff and literally raiding with an item level 158 Wild Spirits conduit, because I'm not doing the Venari lottery. I could still do raid nights with blue and purple parses. It's just fine. So it shows how ignorable some of that stuff actually is when you free yourself up for it. But Kay, was very worried about Korthia just being, I guess, another Beast Warrens, like just another bit in the Maw. That's not the case.
No.
From what I understand, and honestly, if I'm wrong, I'll be very sad. But from what I understand, they're basically redoing them on. It's going to be a different experience. And Korthia is like a new zone that's a part of that. Like Venari's got a new currency. Yeah. And a new, set of everything. So I actually think that the state of that world content is going to be better. Better in the next patch. It seems to me like they're going to... Okay, so their plan with the Maw was basically this, like, Dark Souls zone. And they even said that. I mean, you get Stygia, you die, you lose half your Stygia. It's inspired by Souls, obviously. I mean, even if it's not obvious, they said it, so that's where they got their ideas from. So that's why it was supposed to be slow and dangerous, and you can't mount up, you lose your Stygia and you die, but it just never translated into fun gameplay because nobody actually wanted to be there for its own reasons. Yeah. They were just getting Stygia for other reasons. So it's like Dark Souls, but you're getting the souls to do something else that's not your core Dark Souls experience. Therefore, you're not going to feel like in line with the content that you're doing. So from what I understand, their plan basically is to remove a bunch of Torghast over to just, so Torghast is Torghast. At least reading in between the lines, like I think they're really trying to take a big look at Torghast for the next patch. And then they're essentially revamping the Maw and adding this Korthia zone in. So it seems to me like that's major potential for making both of those systems better. And I can say 100%, if they can actually succeed in those goals with Torghast and make a decent end game patch island out of the Maw and Korthia, yeah, that could be good.
Yeah, that's one of the things that like aggravates me about the Maw more than anything else, is that it's actually technically not that bad.
Yes, this was a fun discussion we
Yeah,
had earlier in the
there's-
office.
Like, there's a lot of stuff actually wrong with it in terms of, like, some parts are annoying. Not being able to mount kind of sucks for all these reasons. But I think the major problem that the Maw had was being part of World of Warcraft as an overall thing. Like with Torghast, as you say, well, what would Torghast be without the Maw? What would the Maw be without Torghast? What would the Maw be without it being tied into grabbing your renown every week?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, if they just cordoned that off and said, hello, here's the Maw, Stygia is for upgrades in the Maw, and at the end there's a mount. At the end there's a cool boss and a mount. If they had doubled down on it being a unique bit of gameplay that you went in for its own sake, instead of throwing people into it and them going, what the fuck is this? Why am I here? Can I please go home? But if people went in there because they wanted to, or because there was a card at the end of the stick, then I think people would actually have enjoyed it a bit more if they'd reframed some stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like it could have worked. But
yeah, I agree, and it goes back to what you were saying earlier about, like, just that thing of Blizzard constantly bribe us to do our content or do their content instead of making us want to do it.
yeah,
So it's like, okay, you had all your artists and your quest designers and your combat designers put a bunch of areas and interactions and things into the Maw, but then you basically just sabotaged it by ruining the player's motivations for going to the Maw. And that means nobody wants to go to the Maw. And as you said, yeah, the Maw's actually, right now, it's got some cool little fights. It's got some cool elements and events and things, things that go on.
Yeah.
And yet we're in a situation where nobody really seems to like the Maw, even though it's good technically sometimes, but not with the overall way that it's done now. In the same way that Torghast, if Torghast was freed up from Soul Ash, if your Covenant stuff was maybe not all tied to Renown, such that, maybe I could engage with my Covenant stuff, like the Covenant campaigns, in a way that wasn't just trying to progress my Renown track, because I actually wanted to do that content. It's just like that thing, I guess, of trying to tie everything together so much that their weaknesses drag each other down. And I think that's what makes things less than the sum of their parts, which is really sad, because the Maw is full of really nice parts. So is Torghast. So is basically, much of this expansion. I just think that maybe a bunch of decisions had to be made late in the day. Maybe there's a situation where the Maw, sure, maybe Blizzard would have agreed with us, but they just didn't have the stuff in place in time, and they had to just sort of throw it all in.
Yeah, this is going to be really annoying for Mist players who really had a good time. But I'm gonna draw a comparison between. Imagine if the Maw was like the Trove of the Thunder King. It was, you were in there for a limited time, because I was just thinking about the Eye of the Jailer. Yeah, you can be in the Eye of the Jailer. It's like, that stuff's really annoying because it's oppressive when you don't want to be there. But imagine, the Maw is, right, like Bolvar standing there, or Venari standing there at Oribos with a stopwatch going, right, you've got 5 minutes, in and out, quick go. And you go in, maybe not a timer, but like can you make it in there long enough to get as much things back? Oh, you've made it back. Good job. Great. That was like an A+ run. You managed to get all the stuff. Here's gold. Here's something. Here's like a way to progress in this thing later. That actually would have been fine.
So I mean, I 1,000,000,000% agree. And the point is basically just let things be themselves. They all need to be hooked into each other.
Yeah.
And because at least that would mean that in my head, like if I'm going to the Maw, there's a big degree of intentionality and desire there. Because right now it's like, I just want to raid, and there's a bunch of things that it's like, I've got to do this so that I can raid. It would be different in terms of the mental framing, I think, of how the game is experienced. If, you're doing your raid, but after your raid, you're like, oh yeah, there's those other distinct things in the game to go and do. Where, you haven't kind of been strung along to a corrupted version of those things, for the sake of getting your Stygia to get your conduits upgraded or whatever that jazz was that obviously I never partook in because it didn't seem fun. And that's why I've enjoyed Shadowlands so much. I just didn't partake in most of the things that people complain about. That's why I was like, cool, I'm going to kill Denathrius with his cool talking sword and his cool phase 3 with a guild full of cool people, and it'll be fun. And funny enough, it was.
Here's another food analogy. Shadowlands is a buffet. You took the right approach and only ate what you wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. But it's actually different because it's like Shadowlands is like a buffet, but you have, I don't know, maybe it's like a buffet, but to get the steak that you want, you've got to sample everything else in the buffet, such that by the time you get the steak you want, you feel sick.
That's basically perfectly it. Like,
that's what they risk doing when they tie things in and make things feel mandatory. Yeah. I mean, look at Horrific Visions.
Yeah.
Those were awesome. I love Horrific Visions. Like, if you could just let me do them now and the scaling would work, I'd be like, oh, cool, fun, Horrific Visions, they're awesome. But in order to do Horrific Visions in my alts, I had to go and do some of the most mind-numbing world content that has ever been seen in the game with those two 8.3 patch zones. Right? And it's like, I loved, loved the Horrific Visions so much, but there was just such a great barrier to entry for actually doing them because you had to do your chores first.
Because you could get loot from them. And you're like, yeah, okay, you've just...
Yeah. So it's like, as we go to 9.1 then, as a raider, I am just excited for another raid. This seems like a raid with a really cool theme. Like, it's going to have cool narrative moments, cool, boss fights in concept. I mean, we're fighting Kel'Thuzad.
Yes.
Yeah, we're fighting, the Targru, he's a pretty big, spooky-looking dude, so that's a cool fight. Eye of the Jailer, finally get our own back. Fighting Kel'Thuzad, fighting Sylvanas. That's awesome. Yes, I'm 100% in for all that stuff. Brilliant. So we got that. We've got the Moz open world gameplay seemingly being tweaked around, changed, maybe soft revamped, maybe just revamped. We've got Torghast probably going to be a whole bunch better. We've got the Mega Dungeon. I think that's the feature I'm the most excited about.
Yes.
So, I mean, in my head, they're just going to add on more renown, and all of those frustrations that exist, those are still going to be there. Yeah. But that put aside, the basics of just another WoW content patch are exactly what I want.
Yeah,
and gearing I've liked, and this might be controversial. A lot of people really don't like gearing in Shadowlands right now, but I quite liked it because, well, it's just whenever I got a drop, I was like, oh, awesome, I've got a drop. Now, of course, my experience of that is that, we're in a guild, so we use Loot Council.
Yeah.
Now, that means that if the drop happens, and it's a great upgrade for my character, ultimately, raid leader decides who gets it based on the needs of the team. So for me, those gearing things all worked out just fine. So I'm just pumped to get into more WoW content, basically. And the idea of just being able to do hard modes of a 5-player dungeon, awesome. And there's ways where I would prefer the idea of a 5-man hard mode to a 10 or to a scaly raid one, because it's just so much more intimate, right? It's just such a small group of people. The responsibilities are so clear. So it's like, I'm really excited for that. I'm really excited for the raid. I know I really like Torghast in concept and had a bunch of fun on PTR, so if they make that be something that's fully realized in live, I'm really excited about that. The new campaign, if it's going to be everybody coming together, it seems like that's actually where the story of this expansion is going to kick into gear.
Yeah.
Whereas I think the anima drought, just people didn't really feel it because it was just a bunch of, these people we've never met are sad. But in patch 9.1, this is Sylvanas and probably Tyrande and Bolvar. You're like, man, shit's going to be popping off, right? Yep. So that's exciting. So it's all the main things there actually seem pretty exciting. And I suspect they know some of these issues about tying every aspect of the game to every other aspect of the game. Like they made it so that the extra sockets on your gear don't, that's only season 1 gear.
Yeah.
The conduits, they can only be leveled up via Stygia to eye level 226, right? They obviously made those changes, in my head anyway, and I hope I'm not wrong, but I think they obviously made those changes because they're sunsetting that system at the end of season 1, and season 2 will bring something new and different, and I'd say very likely not something that's going to repeat the issues of this system. So it's like, I look at this, I'm like, okay, Mythic Plus gearing's way better. Raid gearing is in, a better spot with the changes they made in those hot fixes, and also we're getting something new domination themed, so that could be cool and exciting. So it's like, man, we got an awesome raid, we got an awesome dungeon, we got a bunch of other good things happening. I mean, broad strokes, patch 9.1 actually looks pretty damn exciting, and as you said, it's like we don't care about the Mythic Plus change right now mid-season because we've already done this season.
Yeah.
But new season comes round, get into the Mythic Plus dungeons. Oh, we reap the benefits of this new system. I mean, man, to me, this actually sounds pretty bright, pretty cheery.
Yeah, it's a case where if you think about like when everyone is at step 0, whenever you get into Mythic Pluses from the very first time you're hitting that kind of gear level, sure it'll be the same dungeons or whatever else, but this time when you get a bit of gear, you'll go, oh, I can hold on to that. Which is even better if you're only doing some Mythic Pluses to gear because you're also raiding and also PvPing, because you can kind of focus on one really good bit at a time. So all that stuff will just make the actual experience of 9.1 significantly better than it would have been without all these changes.
Yeah.
And then God knows what else they're going to actually give us in the patch, any little optimizations, because
could be a big one.
0.05 is a dry run for 9.1 basically.
Yeah, and what I mean there when I say there could be a big one is anima.
Yes.
We've done the anima drought. We've not reversed it, but we've helped out a bunch with the anima drought canonically. I don't want to fall prey to false memories here, but I sort of remember somebody at Blizzard indicating more anima in patch 9.1.
I think that was kind of I think people were a little bit confused about what actually happened to all the anima whenever we beat Denathrius. Because obviously it was before the raid, he tore open Nathria and pumped loads of it into the maw. But at the same time, we did liberate Nathria and canonically cut off whatever he dumped in. So all of those massive storages you see down the back of the Dark Vein room, I imagine there will be soup kitchens and Venthyr, in Orbos going, here's your anima. We'll redistribute this back out. So whatever changes they make should be an end to the anima drought, and hopefully that's represented in how much anima we get as well.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a major thing, because if patch 9.1 comes out, casual players in chat, and whenever I say casual players, I want to be really clear, that's not a disparaging thing for me. I think we need better words to describe all of these things, because in many ways, the way that I played the game in the past was as a casual hardcore. And what a casual hardcore is somebody who's hardcore about being casual. And that means, I was doing my old raids, I was doing my gold making, I was trying to get mounts and do all that stuff for my character. And that, I think, is one of the most fun ways to play the game whenever it's, all well realized and those goals exist. So, my casuals in chat, have you been engaging with the cosmetics that you can unlock via the anima system? Or for you, as a few people have mentioned in chat thus far, has the anima values just not really felt right? Because I could say from my perspective, and I believe from yours as well, it's to me, it feels like I would have to do so much content, a bunch of which I'm really not that pumped about World Quest, in order to get the anima required to get some of the unlocks that to me are cool, or upgrade my Covenant Sanctum, which as it turns out is a really, really expensive upgrade when you really get into it.
Very much.
So, I mean, everybody here is saying 0 in chat. Now, the problem is I've actually sort of forgotten the question that I asked.
It was how much have you been engaging with the collectibles you can get?
Okay.
From anima, so this is not a good answer.
Yeah, so we've got lots of people saying no or zero, and then loads of
Yep.
people who are saying that, yeah, we are not feeling like the anima values are enough. I mean, Paul
Yeah.
McKenna says you're literally complaining about having agency to target mounts and transmogs. I'm not. Not at all. That agency is great. Really,
Yeah.
really great. What I've been building to, though, is that the time needed as perceived by players in the anima system appears to be something that is making it harder for them to engage with that player agency driven cosmetic acquisition stuff. It's making it harder for them to engage with that, or maybe not engage with it at all, because they're like, well, I would have to do so many world quests to get the anima that I would need to get these things that I want, even though maybe they feel like they've already unlocked their renown track, and maybe that's what it felt like should have unlocked the thing, and there's maybe some confusion there. So that is a thought there. Is it actually the case that where in the Legion expansion I would have been doing the campaigns and I would have been getting some of the the hidden artifact appearances and stuff like that, or maybe just spinning up fresh alts? I mean, I've got my Horde server, just a whole squad of Legion people with artifacts. But then that's the thing, like, that was stuff to go and do in those alts. Do those class stories.
Yeah.
Get those various different tints and things for those weapons. And that was just to go out and do the thing. But here, it's all homogenized into the anima.
Yeah.
And it seems like the rate of that anima acquisition and maybe some of the methods of that acquisition is maybe bouncing off people. And then maybe that is what is causing, some people who should be thrilled at the amount of casual collection content that's in this expansion not being thrilled because maybe they don't feel like it's an accessible thing to them.
Yeah. Okay. Just about to give a point. Started coughing. Fantastic. Yeah. So my perspective on this is, as someone who, like, if the system feels right, I'll super engage with systems and collectibles and things. Like I did with Legion, I got, I think it was 17 out of 36 mage towers, I think. I don't know why I remember that. It was at least one in every class, and then all of the classes I liked. I had a bunch of tints. I have a lot of PvP armor just from getting Marks of Honor across different classes. I like that stuff when it works, when it makes sense, when it feels good. I don't like it in Shadowlands, but that's because I look at the number, I go, oh, I need anima. I need this for, first of all, I needed to upgrade my Covenant, and the number's big, and I'm doing the math in my head. I'm like, okay, that's this many world quests. Nah, I'm out, because it's so many thousands I need, which is so many, like, it's, 100 world quests. It is basically something like 80 to 120 world quests to unlock, to upgrade the next Covenant piece, for the Covenant Sanctum piece for me, and it's like, that's too much. There's no method I actually enjoy to go and target acquiring it, because as it stands, world quests I don't like. Raiding I do anyway. Mythic Plus is Mythic Plus. I'll do Mythic Plus when I want to do it, but there's no side content that I can reliably get anima from,
other than world quests.
Whereas, yeah, if I had something if I could log in and go, okay, it's anima farming time, and it's actually, it's a thing that feels like, oh, this is the fastest way to get anima. It's, it's a different activity. It's a little bit of light gameplay. It's just kind of fun. I think that would incentivize me to actually go through with it. But the fact that it's this homogenous thing where I need 40,000. Like, I probably need 50,000 to get everything I want, just as a Kyrian from where I am now. And that's, 500 world quests or logging in for raid 50 times. I'm like, can I have a way to make this faster and, specifically target doing that, instead of it just being like drip fed from all the content I feel like I should be doing anyway?
So would you be somebody who would be willing to grind gulp frogs to get towards your goal? And I know that's a bit of an extreme example, but is there a world where, let's just say, patch 9.1 changes up the maw? The maw is now somewhere you can go, and maybe you can recover some of that some of that anima that Denathrius poured in there. And then maybe it turns out that one of the ways to get anima in the game is to go to this, maybe a new revamped mob with this new place called Korthia, where you can do your Covenant strikes that are like Legion invasions, and you're kind of, it's like a thing to do. It's not world quests. And if that was the way that you could just go and get some more anima, I can say that personally, if that was the case, I'd be way more going there, because I'm just like you. The weekly raid happens. I get 1,190 maybe ish anima from doing that, and that's basically the anima that I get, because that does complete my weekly. And also, not that the weekly is it's just gold now, I guess. Not for my character though, because
of course.
I did that thing of like holding both of the weekly quests and then doing the raid, because it seemed like that would actually give the renown catch-up system. Because I basically took a 2-week break from just about everything over Christmas, and a whole bunch of things I'm not going to get into here. But I really relied on like the catch-up system to get me there. But anyway, point is, the anima that I get is via the raid. And PvP, when I finally actually get into PvP, which I really do want to do. It's just life's got in the way. Life finds a way, and it gets in the way. But it's like, aside from those two things, there's just no way of me sitting down to go get some anima like solo.
Yeah.
And the way that I entered World of Warcraft was solo for the most part. It was solo. It was highly driven by fantasy, escapism, and experience. I remember getting my Netherwing. I remember a bunch of those great experiences in Mists of Pandaria early on. And yeah, I'd felt like some of that had diminished over time. So maybe Blizzard's next step should be, if they're married to a bunch of things, well, if we can just make them all awesome in whatever 9.1 does, make it so we can get a whole bunch of anima from there, from doing these various Covenant strikes, things like that, then maybe the like time equation in people's heads of, cosmetics that I want, anima that I need, maybe that will actually look right. And then maybe loads of those casual players who, whenever I asked them if they were feeling engaged by anima, they pretty much all said no. Maybe they'd say yes, because ultimately that's where you want to get.
Yeah, you say about farming gulp frogs as an example. Honestly, like, if the little island that was floating off Dalaran with the fishermen in Legion?
Yeah.
If I could jump off Oribos and fish anima from the maw, I would do that. Like, I would just sit for like 3 or 4 hours some Saturday and do that just to get enough anima to go somewhere, because it's like, that's
bad.
Yeah, but that's what World of Warcraft is in terms of like engaging with goals in whatever way. It's like, that would be on the grand chart of Mihail, whatever his name, I can't pronounce his surname's flow. That would be under relaxing. That would be me going, okay, I'm facing a goal. There's no skill involved. There's no it's just me slightly paying attention. I would just sit there and I would just watch more episodes of Lie to Me while I'm just fishing up anima. I would do that all day, and I'd be like, you know what? That was fine. But it's more the fact that I don't have a way to divert power or time into getting anima. So I can't engage with the system, because engaging with that is doing everything else at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, Spunk McCullens comes in and says that he agrees it would be a good reward, but says it's important to point out that we're advocating against what we advocated for earlier with tying rewards to content. I think there's a few important distinctions to make there. So what we're saying right now is like a pragmatic solution to a current problem with the existing framework that we've got. Yeah. Whereas that discussion earlier was basically a bit more first principles. And I suppose in a way we are treating the cosmetic angle of things differently to how we would treat the player power stuff, like your Stygia sockets, because for a lot of people that ends up feeling mandatory. Now, I will admit I'm not one of those people. I could not imagine doing that. I could not imagine forcing myself through something because that I don't like. And I think that's why I've been able to, with Shadowlands, actually enjoy it a lot. I have had basically like no negative experiences. Like I did an old school all-nighter to level up. I had a blast getting my character to, its pre-raid situation. And then I went into a raid that, from my perspective was awesome. Now, that was just because I got to, complete some cool challenges in a game with my friends. And that's basically what I wanted from the game. I did that for, the time where I was playing it. It was awesome. I had a really positive experience. But then for me, it's like, I just know it's like I could just do these as much as this back piece or this mount is awesome, the amount of world quests to get it, that's time where I could be playing around with rattling guns in Warhammer 2.
Of course.
Which is more just to say that it's that anima like time investment equation just didn't really work out for a bunch of people. And I think maybe also because, and we've covered this in the past, but you get souls are capped, right?
Yeah,
Souls are capped.
Souls, 100.
And your weekly soul acquisition was capped. And then that would really set the player expectation that the thing that caps their progress is their souls acquisition rate.
Yeah. So
you basically know you've got it ass backwards whenever it plays out the way that it did.
Yeah, it's the time getting aspect of it ended up not being a get in any capacity, because it was for like the first 2 or 3 weeks whenever soul cost was low and so was anima cost, but then soul cost stayed low compared to how much it got. Anima cost skyrocketed. And it's like, here's currency A and currency B, and we thought that's what it was, and then they went, nope, sorry, it's the other way around. You've been thinking about this wrong. We're like, well, we're not going to, you haven't explained any of this to us, you set the expectations wrong.
Yeah. So to bring it back and to wrap things up for patch 9.1 then, I think what people probably will want to hear is just the short version of the personal angle. So how do you personally feel about patch 9.1? Are you excited? Are you not? What do you want from it? Do you think it is going to be something you want to engage with a bunch?
That's a good question. I think fundamentally, yes. I'm excited for it because it's more content, and I believe they've done a good job with a lot of their content. I think with a more focused story direction that they've had time to work on, especially now that we know the Covenants a little bit and we'll be working with them together in a unified goal, I think the narrative thrust will be stronger. I think the actual quest content of that could be stronger, or at least be more interesting in Korthia, because I think if they're going back into the history of the Shadowlands, there's a lot of stuff that I personally like that they'll be throwing out. So that's from that perspective of the initial oh, I'm logging in 9.1. Oh, go off the start line. There's all that stuff that I'm super interested in. Then we move to the raid and Tazavesh, and I'm obviously excited for those because raids have just been great. They're more or less they've been great since the dawn of time, almost, ignoring a couple of classic ones. But the raids are consistently great. I enjoy doing them with the guild. It's fantastic. Mega Dungeon, I enjoy doing that with a third of our raid group, especially doing those hard modes fairly early on with decent gear will actually be great. Mythic Plus with Valor gearing is going to be better than before. It probably will sting a little bit because of the lack of new dungeons, because Tazavesh won't be a Mythic Plus dungeon. Be doing those same ones again. As to whether a new affix will change that up substantially, hard to say, but at least the Valor gearing part of it will be there, so I can do that on the loop. And then with Korthia and the Maw as places to go, as long as they're better, I'll be happy enough to win.
Yeah.
It's a case where fundamentally there's content, especially being able to fly around existing zones.
Oh my God, flying.
Did you forget about that?
So I think flying is probably, it's worth mentioning there. For a long time, I did defend a lot of grounded stuff. I defend, not worth reopening that can of worms.
Yeah.
Basically, I think that in principle, grounded is 100% the way to go to actually have a more crafted gameplay experience. Yep. But I do think that for how World of Warcraft actually is in reality, do flying, and let's get around the issues of flying by just making big, cool zones like the Storm Peaks. Again, and just doing that from launch. But for what I basically think about 9.1, you know what? It is all all aspects, much better.
Yes, fundamentally.
A World of Warcraft dungeon is a World of Warcraft dungeon. Yes, I may prefer the Mega Dungeon or Kata Heroic over a time trial thing, but hey, a Mythic Plus dungeon's still fun. You know, do a new season, new affix. I should probably get a lot more into that anyway, because I know I've enjoyed that content like that in the past. And, you know, between the people that are around, I mean, we've got some pretty damn awesome people to play with. It would be really fun. I would like to do that. So, regular dungeoning, which now has a better gearing system. I'm hyped. Tazavesh. I'm extremely excited. I really want to do that. Very cool. Yes, we get an infinite pirate dragon. Great. So, doing Mythic Plus dungeons, seems we're on the up and up. Tazavesh, we're on the up and up, humongously speaking. They're revamping the mod. They're changing things up. That's all probably going to be in a good direction, right? I mean, I think Blizzard have been listening.
Yes.
So, that's in a really good direction. A raid? A new raid? Great. I love raids. Fantastic. Let's go. World of Warcraft raids are great. I mean, bloody hell. I looked through the feature list of this patch, and sure, it might not be some massive blow your tits off with its sheer scope and ambition, but if you actually look at every little thing they're doing, it pretty much all seems good. And in some cases, very good, because tell you what, whenever that crew makes a mega dungeon, they do a damn good job.
Yep.
So I'm in. Yeah. I think though. So basically, to answer that final question, yes, I'm in. I'm very excited. However, there is the final thing to discuss, which is the situation where I think a lot of people feel like World of Warcraft has got to entertain them all the time. Now, World of Warcraft charges a subscription fee, so there certainly are some expectations being set there. But I think it leads to those situations where, you have some fun, and then you no longer have fun, and it's like, okay, well, now it's time for resentment and anger. Whereas for my situation, like, I go in, I have my fun, and then I do something else. And then whenever new things come in that are fun, that are engaging to me, I come back and I have a nice time, and it's great. So if World of Warcraft has got a pressure to always be your every game, the game that you just play, and that is it. You don't need to think about any other game in the universe. I mean, if that's what WoW's gotta be, then it's a losing battle. Yeah. Because then you've got to stretch gearing out to be the infinite Titan Forging and all that stuff, and then things have got to be way more grindy feeling and all of that jazz. So it's like, I'm trying to work out how to just get this or advocate for this community position of saying, don't play World of Warcraft. You don't need to. And for that to be not received in a, oh, look, that guy's flaming Blizzard. He's a hater. He hates my passion and my hobby, and this is a personal attack against my identity. No, it's actually saying that in a constructive and positive way, where it's saying that if you actually just take World of Warcraft for what it is, enjoy the bits that you want to enjoy, have a good time, and just leave it at that, then so much less pressure is put in World of Warcraft to always be able to entertain you every single time. And it's just that thing where, in the past, it could kind of do that, because for many people it would take 6 months to level up a character and, they would come home from school. They did not have all that jazz in their life. So yeah, you could kind of have this infinite World of Warcraft, game playing experience. I'm really glad that still exists to a degree with Classic right now. But I think that whenever that expectation then is trying, whenever people try to carry that forward to the modern game, doesn't always work out super well, because our characters are already leveled, and leveling is a short thing now, and now it's all end game. Whereas imagine WoW Classic, where you could level up to 60 in a single sitting. What would happen is so many people would, bam, they're level 60, and then like, where's the content? What are we going to do? And it turns out World of Warcraft could last so bloody long for so many people, because it took a bloody long time to do anything. Yeah. And your goals were pretty short and simple. And the end game, I mean, the end game was more simple, and it wasn't necessarily short, because the rate of gear acquisition and the sort of well, the pre-Wrath Nax, so, TBC era, that was all, less than it is now. So there's a thing there. I don't really know how to solve it because, I think that the way for Blizzard to solve this is basically just to make World of Warcraft way more take it or leave it. Yeah. And I could totally see how that would be a spooky thing to try to sell to, I'm imagining, imagine like Ian trying to advocate that to Jab and then Jab being like, okay, hello, everyone. I know that there's probably a level of devolvement where Bobby doesn't have a clue what Jab's doing. But, just that thing of saying, hey, so our bold new game design for World of Warcraft is that you don't have to play it if you're done with a bit that you like. But we're going to hope that you like the other bits. Because that, I think, is the key to making a modern World of Warcraft in a really good, sort of positive way that doesn't breed a lot of the negative feelings that I think really just get inserted into the community. And I think those feelings, they kind of come up because it's like Torghast isn't there. It's just the thing, go do, enjoy it. It's its own thing and it's awesome. And we've entirely optimized the Torghast experience to be the Torghast experience. Where it's like, nope, Jimmy the Raider is going to Torghast to get his soul ash. He doesn't want to be there, but he needs his soul ash. Now he has resentment. Or, oh, yeah, Jill's in the mod. Does she want to be there? No. Does she think she needs sockets? Yes. It's like, that's this thing of, do it and have it all tied together like that. But I just feel like if there's a situation where it's like, I as a raider can go in, do my raiding, pretty much uninhibited by mandatory content. And then, because there's no mandatory content and my player progression is not tied into other things, that's surely going to mean that the other things in the game will be better. And better for the audiences who actually would appreciate them. That's a lot of my thoughts on this situation. And I wish we could move a bit more in that direction. It does just start to make me think, why do we have Renown? Why do we have all of these things? Why don't we just, have the theme and the characters and the experience and the fantasy? Why don't we have that be the glue that ties all of these things together rather than necessarily all of the mechanics and you feeling like to do this one thing, you got to do a bit of this, and this. And maybe, you could finish your raid, you're done. And maybe you leave and you do something else until the next raid. Or maybe there's just another part of the game you haven't touched. You go and do it. And, you haven't been forced to have the sampler, to do the sampler version of that to get a bit of player power for your raid. So that would mean you don't have any negative emotions towards it and you're going to enjoy it more. So it is a weird thing of, that would be a really, I think, a hard, spooky thing for them to do. But also the point that led to that is one of trying to advocate for people working out a way like, if you want to play World of Warcraft, and you're actually enjoying bits of the WoW that you play, but you're actually finding that it's manifesting all of these negative emotions in you, then goddamn, that's something we've got to solve. And I think the way to solve that is, just say, more conduits and more sockets, fuck off. Do your raid, do your Mythic Plus, enjoy the hell out of them because they're actually really quite well designed and pretty damn fun. Not pretty damn fun, they're very well designed and very fun. WoW boss fights are very awesome. It's just trying to work out a way where you can go do that and kind of not trip yourself up over everything else that's going on. And I would then say also Blizzard maybe supporting that a little bit better.
Yeah, they certainly... it's a problem with player expectation, I think, especially when it comes to mono gamers where people are trying to play just World of Warcraft all the time, but the content doesn't super support them, but they see it does support some. So like, why I want to play this game a lot, but there's nothing for me to do. How's everyone else doing it? I think there's a little bit of that because, you see like prevalent streamers who play the game 8 hours a day are like, what the hell are you doing? But it's them enjoying like the content they enjoy. So it's like, it's really hard for Blizzard to, I think, actually get that expectation across, especially because, they're looking at the MAUs, the DAUs, they're looking at like playtime for metrics, and they just see these things going up, but they don't have a player experience metric. They need like a player experience index where they monitor your emotions as you're playing, and you're like, when people log out Like,
Yeah.
a little like rate your World of Warcraft experience out of 5 stars every time you log out.
I think that's really interesting because we can bring this over to the land of big tech.
Mm-hmm.
If you optimize YouTube for DAUs and MAUs, which by the way they do, what's going to happen is you're going to create all of these incentives to, it's like you got to be very careful in what you measure because you're going to optimize for what you measure. You're going to get more of what you measure, but you're not necessarily going to be aware of the results, the other results, the externalities of that. So it's like whenever YouTube does that, then the algorithm juices everything. The single most important thing is getting your title and your thumbnail to be right. That's the only bloody way to get, and it sucks. It sucks for...
Yeah.
Don't worry, I know it. I'm a YouTube user as well, by the way. Sucks for me as a YouTube user. Sucks for me as a YouTube creator. If you talk to other people on YouTube, literally like everyone dislikes this stuff from an actual, user perspective. Yet YouTube's numbers are going to the moon, right? And it's like, man, it's just that thing. You optimize to the DAUs and the MAUs and whatever that stuff is. And what are the hidden costs of that? And it turns out in YouTube, the hidden cost of that is making everybody angry and reactionary and just creating all this nastiness, and I'm talking about this in the context of big tech. I mean, if you look at other tech platforms, like your Facebooks and your Twitters, they're totally optimized for engagement and their DAUs and their MAUs. And it is no wonder that a great deal of toxicity and many, many, many humongous societal problems arise from cesspools like that. And I say cesspool, it's not cesspool, it's the town square. It's turned the town square into a cesspool. So it's when you then apply that to to anything else. It's like if Destiny 2 has to... I think it's sometimes useful to give examples that are further away from the thing that we're emotionally attached to, because then we can... we're disengaged, so we can think about it a bit more clearly. If like Destiny 2 entirely optimizes it for its monthly active users and its DAUs and whatever, is that going to lead Bungie to make decisions that make people feel like they're just kind of being, forced into playing the game, or mandatory content, something here a lot of World of Warcraft people, I think more on the top end, complain about. So it is that thing. But the problem is, and this is the bitter bloody pill to swallow, is that it works. It works until it breaks.
Yeah.
And I guess it's going to take a while for YouTube, Twitter, and etc. to Facebook to break society. They're doing a bloody good job of it.
Yeah, I think that's fundamentally like what's actually going to happen, because big tech is too big to fail in so many ways, and we will continue to click. It's like, it's because all of this stuff is optimized around our worst instincts as people. Parts like, I mean, obviously, like you go back to before, like a couple decades ago. People were generally like, yeah, be patient, be nice, be generous, all these like positive virtues. And, you could espouse those, and you could, I guess, work towards them as a community fairly well. But then you go on Twitter, and the entire system that's completely like shoving you full of dopamine is based on engagement. And I mean, patience is nothing to do with like instant engagement.
Yeah,
that comes from basically like our the most primal basest parts of us. That's like your anger. You're angry, so you're like, no, dickhead. That's not good for...
Brings out the worst in people and in good people. There's so many people, maybe there's an actor or somebody they look up to, and then they go onto their Twitter and they're like, oh, I thought whatever, but it turns out they're actually a raving or maybe they're not a raving lunatic, but maybe they're just reactionary and a bit of a prick. Like with famous people and stuff like that. It's like the second social media gets in people, it just gets in, it gets into their brain, it fiddles around with it, and that's not ideal, right? There's been times I've even caught in my own head, making things being like, I could react to this right now and get some likes on Twitter, and I've done it, and then it's afterwards there've been the few sane people in the room who've done a reply being like, come on, really, dude? And then in my head I'm like, oh, you're right. And we bring this up for the social media and all that just to say that, if WoW was maximally optimizing for the DAUs and the MAUs, that could maybe lead to a situation where to do Torghast, you've got to do some of the Maw, and to do your raid, to do your raid on, one day, well, the day before you've got to go do these things. And, that could all optimize for your DAUs or whatever, MAUs.
Yeah.
But I think it's more the, what's the damage we inflict in the process. But then the problem is it works until it breaks. And that basically means that, if you're a business and you've got a legal responsibility to maximize your shareholder or whatever, you've got your fiduciary responsibilities and all of that, then you're, if you want to just focus entirely on player experience, you will absolutely make a better game and a better player experience, but maybe one that less people end up sticking with over time.
Yeah, there's a couple of there's a couple of factors that interfere with this all in such a grim way, because first of all you've got your fiduciary duty, which obviously is in the short to medium term provide as much return as you can for your shareholders. If you're not doing that, you can literally you can be sued for that. That is a serious offense to just play with money instead of giving it to the shareholders. So you've got that where you've got the short to medium term focus. Then combine that with optimizing for because you want the sure result. So you optimize for what you know, and you can measure monthly active users. You can measure daily active users. You can measure how much money that will bring you to do this in a short time. So obviously the correct choice for by all of these metrics and all of these goals as a business is to do the short term, medium term thing. It's if World of Warcraft started giving you daily login bonuses up front, it's doing that on a weekly basis. It's giving you weekly login bonuses. It's giving you your daily stuff to actually do. It's just not as obvious as a big flashing mobile game, which is a little bit less insidious and more just you're on the hook. So there's all of these different incentives and factors lining up to short term stuff. But then, with how short term investment and how short term, you can only really measure these things in the short term reliably, because you can't measure player experience very well. It's too qualitative, it's too random, it involves too many personal things of people. You can get a general gist of it, but you don't get that on your graphs, which very nicely line up with your money graphs over the past 6 months.
Yeah, and if you're trying to advocate for change in your company, you're going to have some numbers to back up the shit you're saying, or you'll never get it done.
Yeah, you can't say, cut MAUs in half and our money will double. They're like, nah.
Yeah, they're going to be like, going to hit you with a big disagree there, mate. And it's just tricky. So, that is to say that we're all operating in a very, very complex digital economy, and those things actually do affect everything. And the numbers that you choose to measure, to pay attention to, those do matter. There is it's like what gets measured gets. There's some little saying there that's a really good one, but I've completely forgotten.
I've heard it before, but I don't remember.
So that was a long way of finishing off the segment that was basically just talking about 9.1. If you're just coming in, TLDR is that even though there's been issues, stuff we've been talking about, we've been very focused on how the game can be better, which obviously is something that involves engaging with its current issues. In spite of that, we're actually both very excited for patch 9.1. I would recommend that if you're feeling on the fence, just, look at the 9.1 content. If that content feels like, I could enjoy a mega dungeon and a new raid and a this and a that and a that, but I'm not having fun in the game right now, I've got a really simple strategy for you. Stop playing right now, and when the new exciting stuff comes, go play it. And the point is, you'll actually enjoy it more. If you sacrifice being a monthly active user for 2 months, and don't make yourself sick of the game, don't make yourself feel all tired and burnt out, hit up 9.1, some nice fresh eyes, you'll probably enjoy it a hell of a lot more. And you can probably experience some fantastic video games in the interim, because ultimately we're here to play some fun video games and enjoy them. So, with that said, little bit of control the show, and then we are going to nip off, but I will say a little bit more in the brief one. So for the super chats, we've got one from Glaive, who said that WoW feels overcomplicated in its current state. All happened to simple systems. Run heroics, get into raids. Now there's too many hoops. And that's an interesting one, because sometimes Blizzard put in things to solve problems for players. I think or sort of solve problems, even though it could be a problem they've created. But your MAW sockets. It's like, now players can get sockets. That's the thing. it's the more that those game systems are, I think, interconnected with each other, that to people they look at and they just kind of go, ooh, like that sort of meme format thing, and then their head melts, and then they don't feel like they can get it. And it's that sort of thing where, if you feel like, oh, I'm in this cool fantasy, I've been, questing through the forests, and I've got to look, it's the new Covenant Sanctum, you're all excited, and then you're hit up with, a bar to earn, a currency, a soul's currency, and a whole bunch of things, then you can feel overwhelmed. So there is something, I think, right now where it's pretty easy for people to feel overwhelmed. I think Covenants end up throwing a decent amount of things at some of the less mechanically oriented players a little bit early on, and maybe for some people that's a little bit too much. And then, it's like they have just added in more systems, many of which are actually, pretty fun, like, getting legendaries, that's all pretty cool. But it's like the more systems you add, there's a risk of there being interdependencies between them. Yeah. And I think to a lot of people that reads as complexity, and they can see that and just be, overwhelmed. The game certainly is more complex than it was in the past, but also the players are more complex. Mm-hmm. The players are more willing to engage in complexities. And I think that in turn then means that Blizzard are, they're making a game for their players. So if they've got all of these players with their weak, and Blizzard say they don't develop boss fights with weak auras and boss mods in mind.
They have to.
But they kind of have to because everybody does. Yeah. So, I mean, it's like because World of Warcraft has, a lot of game designers have advanced World of Warcraft as a video game playing experience. I don't mean just an experience, but I mean the video gamey part of it, where, you're getting your numbers to do the bigger numbers, doing your stuff. It's like that's just being developed and advanced and advanced and advanced. And it's been advanced for a community of people who have liked that, who have enjoyed it. But then for a lot of people, they're going to come back to it and it's going to feel like it's all too much. I think if we were to say that this was a problem, I think the only way to solve this, that's, I think, a good one, is just having a nice distinction and separation between content, such that if you're a raider, you don't have to worry about a bunch of other things. If you're a mythic player, you don't have to worry about, if you're a casual, you don't have to worry about whatever. You just go do your thing and it'll feel natural, maybe not overwhelming. It's an interesting thing. I never felt overwhelmed by the Shadowlands expansion, but I did notice in the video comments that we got, a lot of people were saying they were feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, I think fundamentally it's because it's a spider web. Like everything is super connected. If you try to visualize it as like all the content is like nodes on a graph and then they link to each other, it's immediately just a web, as opposed to, because I was comparing this in my head as you were speaking to like so this is complicated. Why isn't TBC attunements complicated? Obviously that is complex instead of just, it's not a simple, go do this and get that. It is but it is a lot of separate nodes with a single or like double, maybe even triple links in them. So it is like you've got prerequisites, but you are on a path through these nodes. You do have very clear movements between them, but now it's complicated because everything ties into each other in like not even obscure ways. It's fairly simple, but it's just, you want to get your legendary, you go to Torghast, it's connected to the Maw. You're getting anima from all these places. You're getting conduits from world quests, conduits, soulbinds. There's a lot of terminology, and it's all super interwoven together, where it's like, it's just, at the risk of sounding like an idiot, it's just not simple. It's complex.
Yeah. And that is actually, you sort of said that in a way that brought up another angle, I guess, and I think it's an important angle. Yeah, whenever glyphs were glyphs, glyphs have, since glyphs were glyphs, there've been many other things, including conduits, soulbinds and all of that. But when a glyph was a glyph, you were like, hello there, Mr. Scribe, I would like a glyph, please. Scribe would go, hello, here is your glyph. You would say, why have you just handed me a cup, not a glyph? And then you'd put this somehow into your character. I don't know how you socket a glyph onto yourself, but that's what you do. And then there you go. Problem solved, done. Now, you're not going to get many more MAUs or DAUs from that, are you? No. You're not going to get more active users because you can't, progress and level up your glyphs. Nice and simple, though. Just about anyone could understand it. But then the thing from the player expectation is that we're getting bigger and better over time. Does Blizzard feel like, okay, we got glyphs, but those are a bit simple. Well, how about we got these soulbinds, characters you care about, and they have a bunch of mechanics. Cool, the thing you care about's got more mechanics. And then it's got progression. And then it's got things you can socket onto it to customize it even more. And then in the new patch, you can get empowered versions of it all. I mean, you can totally see how from Blizzard's perspective, if their thing is they're trying to up the ante and make, the cool, innovative new thing for the new expansion, it's going to involve advancing things that in their very first form are very simple. I guess the question is, how far do you go? I would say we should maybe not go so far and maybe try to think about new cool things instead of trying to juice the same principles again and again.
Yeah.
I mean, my personal perspective has always just been, I wish, just scrap. Why do we even bother with conduits? Just give us a bunch of glyphs and spend all that dev time in anything else.
Yeah. The thing that's annoying is conduits I actually like a lot of them. They feel, especially as a paladin, some of them feel really nice. Echoing Blessings, I can just throw freedom on someone, they run faster now. That feels natural. I used to do that, I would do it anyway, just in case someone gets slowed. But now they go fast with Echoing Blessings. Divine Steed now lasts longer if I have that in. It's like, that feels good. I have that, but if I try to draw on a graph of like how that interacts with everything else, it's like, okay, so we've got our soul binds. There's 3 of them. Each path gets progressed at different rates with renown. Okay, cool. Where's renown from? Here, 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 and here. Okay, sweet. It's also limited. Okay, but conduits. Okay, conduits come from here and here and here. And they also come from Venari. So I need to get Stygia, which comes from here, which comes from, all these weeklies and dailies. So as all this stuff is like super interconnected versus glyphs, where does you go get glyph? And I think that's fundamentally the problem. Whereas if conduits are more just like, hello, this part of the table, it goes in, and you're not worrying about any other part of it. It's just, yeah, here you go. Here's a cool thing, a cool bonus you can earn. But it's just the way they've tried to game it in so many different ways to kind of like spread everything out. It's like,
Yeah. I think the final thing I'll say there is, whenever everything in World of Warcraft has got to be built around the new expansion, super hardcore, such that it's world of wherever the current patch is. That is the game. Now imagine a situation where instead of the conduits and any of that jazz, you actually could just customize little bits of your class and your spec via your class order hall. And maybe if we just say, we've established the class order halls to defend Azeroth, this is now just a thing that exists in the World of Warcraft, and in future, this is the system by which, you can tweak and modify little bits of your class. And it was just that forever. And minor little changes and additions over time, but minor, nice and simple. I think something like that would be a bit more sustainable than kind of having to place a big new bet every X pack. Yeah,
it would be great. And it's like you could swap so much that out with each expansion and have it feel different, but it would still remain like, it would still feel like part of the overarching game, where it's like, almost like this is weird, but it's like taking out like a server blade or something and then just slotting another one in for the new expansion might kind of nail the feel a bit better. Where it is just, okay, it's a new expansion. Go back to the characters that that handled your class, and they're like, hello, we have liaised with the Kyrian. You now have access to Divine Toll. And you're like, sweet, that's cool, thank you very much. You can upgrade stuff with these 3 slots, and then there you go, you're sorted. And then that carries in with like customization from later, from prior. That would all really, really work out quite well, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of it just comes down to simplicity. And I guess another thing then is for people like Lave, if they're worried, if they're feeling overwhelmed, like if every expansion just kind of rejigs everything so much, then that rate of change will be confusing to people. And that's always something to balance. We've got another super chat from Jared Hill, who says, I would say basically he said, for zones like Suramar, to add campaigns into the leveling process, like in Shadowlands, he says, we should have been able to push the renown up towards current caps. So what I'd say there is, I would like zones like Suramar to exist, really in an end game context and just be their own thing, right? With their own rewards, their own cool mechanics, their own just cool stuff. But there is something he says there about renown, and that's where I would say, at least for a lot of people, if 9.1 if 9.1 changed up Threads of Fate and basically said, hey, so you can actually just do your 9.0 Covenant campaign at level 50 and you can get renown. And you can actually, because one of the promises of Threads of Fate was that we could actually progress our characters in a relevant way while we're leveling. And that never really happened.
No, because progressing is gear, effectively.
Yeah, but even if we could just get a bunch more anima, or push up our renown, things like that as we level, I think that would be a really good thing for Threads of Fate to do. So I totally advocate for Threads of Fate. I guess getting its next iteration with Threads of Fate, great idea. I'm totally behind them. However, and it's not necessarily their fault. It's more just a product of time is really goddamn hard. Yeah. But that was, the recent Threads of Fate system came in so late in beta. Yeah. So kind of hard to get right. But yeah, I mean, if that leveling, it's that thing where earlier in the show I'd said that I almost wish they'd scrap leveling and just we get our character to its, end game-ish state via whatever way. And then we just have a fun new world to explore because, hey, let's go explore a cool new world. Wouldn't that be cool? Because it's video games. I sort of said that as a response to leveling, almost feeling like it doesn't have much of a place in the game right now. Yeah. It's like, think about the amount of time Blizzard made developing all of those zones, all of those quests. But for so many people, it's like, zoom, 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 Castle Nathria. Zoom, 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 Mythic Plus. Maybe another way, my approach was just to admit that and say, let's not call that leveling. Let's call that, adventuring or questing and make it a thing you could do at endgame if you're that type of player. Maybe another way would be making it so that leveling can feel more relevant to your endgame progress. I don't exactly know what that would look like, but at least the Threads of Fate giving you renown and giving you some of those things would be, useful, nice, would be appreciated. I think people would enjoy leveling up their alts more. They'd feel more meaning with each ding and each whatever, as they also find themselves having this meaningful endgame progression.
Yeah. Oh, God. It's so difficult because there's so many thoughts you can have on leveling super, super easily. Because, you remove it, what do? There's so many different paths to removing leveling and getting everyone in the gate at the same time. Like getting straight to endgame and then splitting everything up so people have all that fun. It's like, I've thought about it so much because it's making the content isn't a waste because those quests are like, it's those campaigns and stuff for each zone were fine. Yeah, they weren't stellar, but they were fine. They were absolutely, you could tell they put a lot of effort into setting all the story up, setting everything up that way. But at the end of the day, it's the expectation of me 60 now, please. It's like, it's like leveling instead of being the path you're walking down. To most players who go, oh look, nice path. The leveling is just a gate that's blocking you. So most players just kick it down and go, all right, yeah, good thing I don't have to worry about that. Whereas it would be very difficult to 100% nail, that's for sure. But I would really love to see a world where the start of an expansion is not like a starting pistol going off and everyone racing to complete all the content, because that's what's happening. People aren't doing all the content, they're racing through it.
Yeah, well, it's like earlier, we talked about big social media. Yes, earlier we talked about big social media platforms and all that stuff and how, if they optimize for, the numbers that they want, there's negative externalities to that. And it's that thing within the WoW community where, we're people who make WoW guides. It's the thing to do, and it's fun to make them. It's actually fun to go speed level because speed running is actually pretty fun. Yep. But then it's kind of hard because it's like, that's not the way to enjoy the game in that sense. And that's not the way, being that friendly is not really the way to make an enjoyable game. But it's kind of incentivizing Blizzard to make the game like that because that's how it's played because, as you said, the incentives. It's tricky. Ugh, yikes.
Yeah, it's like, I think in a way to think about it from like a how players engage with it perspective, people have all of this explosive energy at the start of an expansion. At the start of every patch, everyone's like, I'm going to show up and there's going to be like, this is going to be a 24-hour stream. This is going to be a 16-hour session. I'm booking time off work. I'm getting in the new craze is getting in healthy snacks and loads of like Fiji water. Okay, like I'm good to go. And these blast. So it's like, why give them this big thing to tire them out before they hit the end game?
Yeah.
Why not just go, okay, so you want to play? Play. Here's a very quick way to unlock end game stuff, and here's a unique way, and obviously they would have to think of this. Here's a unique way that we've actually laid out progression in the end game that's more involved than hit 60, do all 8 dungeons. It's like there's it's hard to imagine, but there most likely is a solution that works for getting progression, making it feel like endgame, having everything feel like really, really important and cohesive, but without feeling like you need to blast it, which I guess is just, dropping people at the end and giving them freedom, I think, is probably most of the solution to how that feels.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Interesting stuff, and like these infinite problems in a way to solve.
Yeah.
We are approaching 3 hours, so I'm going to try to
nice.
zoom us through a little bit. So we've got unknown character asking, sending a super chat asking, basically just saying a bit baffled why it's so hard to switch Covenant, saying that they'd still be playing on their main if they could just go through the other Covenant campaigns and access that content. I'd say, there's a perception of available content that is certainly limited when you make a decision that's inherently a bit permanent. Yeah. And you would wonder for a lot of people if Blizzard would have seen a better success if there was a way to experience other Covenant content. But, would that be at too much of an expense of, there being incentive to roll alts? It's hard to say. I'll say that I don't think the Covenant stuff is really working out that great. Now, whenever we talked to Morgan, he said that they were really happy with it and think it's working great. So maybe they have numbers to go against that. Maybe they are seeing loads of, those players who they just quietly play the game and they don't make posts, they don't watch videos, they don't leave comments. And maybe those people are just making alts, one for each Covenant, and going and enjoying the game.
They're easily the happiest of us all.
100%, yeah. But then, there's a bunch of us who would, I guess, like to do that. Tricky. I mean, look, I think it just comes down to this. That's the design they went for. And I think many of us could be baffled as to why they put so much friction into swapping the Covenants. Ultimately, they did that because they wanted you to really feel like you pick your Covenant and that is that for your character, but then give you enough wiggle room so that you're not screwed by that decision if it's not the one that you really want. So interesting stuff. We've got another one from OBCMTG who says, I've been through 3 guilds that died in Hungering Destroyer Mythic, but completing a Mythic 14 was easy. What can Blizz do to fix this to get 226?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, the quick answer is do all 20s or do all 25s. I guess it's just you're gonna have to solve that difficulty imbalance to have gearing feel complete. I think the easier way to do that is something we might see out of the raid gear in 9.1. Depends on how hard they go with the domination stuff they're talking about. But the way to get around that gear-wise is make raid gear so much better for raiding, Mythic Plus so much weaker in raiding comparatively, that you're not thinking about it in terms of why is this hard, like, to even up the rewards for difficulty.
Yeah, I get you. It's like if you just thought, what I need is perps, and you were in TBC, and you're like, well, the way that I can get my perps is to do a bunch of welfare grinding for the PvP stuff.
Yeah.
But it turns out a whole bunch of the item budget has went into resilience or whatever, so it's actually rubbish gear in PvE. Then it's like you wouldn't even be thinking about that. I mean, if they could have it so the Mythic Plus gear was Mythic Plus gear, and then the Domination gear was best in was best in raid, then I guess a bunch of those concerns wouldn't exist. That would probably be pretty good. So, there you go. Interesting stuff. There's Justin who is saying the big fun of imagine Dreamhaven buying out WoW. Says he'd like to play the game without giving money to J. Allen Brackdivision. That is one that I've not heard before, so well done. I'd say it's that sort of thing. I don't like sort of too much, doing a whole personal, it's Jab's ruining everything.
Yeah.
It's like Jab ultimately is just a dude with a job. He was a WoW producer. I was certainly surprised that he seemingly had a meteoric rise, to be the successor. And, it's weird because he did himself in on public relations whenever he said, you think you do, but you don't. And that's just one of those things where in his head, that was just a small pithy remark that he made. I hope that's the right definition of pithy. Maybe it's not. Who knows? He just made that comment, and it just sort of ran away. Obviously, Classic was a massive success. Now, that said, I have actually heard that a whole bunch of the layoffs were made using financial projections that assumed Classic doing way worse than it actually did. So I hope he doesn't have anything to do with those projections, Jab. But no, I don't like pinning, stuff on people too much because, a great person can be in a company in a corporate structure where they're just not set up to succeed. And Blizzard had many problems under Mike Morhaime. We have to be real about that. What was he called? I've forgotten his name, but the sort of game director who came in, did a bunch of help, ended up, Reaper of Souls came out for Diablo 3. Suddenly it was like, it was Josh Mantequilla?
I think it was that.
And it was all this stuff of, wow, Diablo's saved. Great. We're going to get D3 expansion 2. We're going to see what's happened to Leah's soul. But no, Mike Morheime's leadership team cancelled that. And that's like, yeah, I'd say Mike made a bad call. But people like Mike, so they're not going to give him the blame of a bad call that he made, probably. But Jab memed himself real damn good and felt a bit stilted at BlizzCon, therefore easy punching bag. But that said as well, when you're the president, you actually do sign up to be the punching bag. You do sign up to be the public face. And if you cannot control your own public image, then, kind of comes with the job. As for Dreamhaven buying out the WoW franchise, not going to happen. Never going to happen. There's not enough money to make that happen.
Yeah, there's not enough money, and would they want to?
No, I think people in Dreamhaven, they're probably they want a new thing. So yeah, they want a new thing. Now that said, what I really see that is, can we have World of Warcraft but the old days?
Yeah.
And I think for that there's Classic, there's other MMOs coming out there that people are getting excited about, like Ashes of Creation. Admittedly, I don't know too much about that game. I really do need to look through it though. So I guess the real meat of that question is just WoW returning to some of its more classic-y roots, and I think there's not much else to say there because it's really getting to the core of so much of what we've talked about over the last month in this show.
Yeah, I think if I had anything to add, I would say that this is going to be difficult. Let it die. If you want something that feels that way from a new studio, actively go out of your way to break your attachment to the Warcraft IP and try to find the joy in whatever Dreamhaven's making. That might, if they are making something that tickles those old urges, actually let that happen. Don't stay attached to Warcraft for the sake of IP, because that's setting yourself up for a lot of pain, basically.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's very much, take things for what they are. If what they are is something you like, go ahead, have a fun time. If not, don't feel like you need to.
Yep.
So moving on, we got a super chat from Simon M, who said, well, basically, Simon does not like most of the Covenant cosmetics and is suggesting other systems that are going on there. I guess other cosmetic reward systems. And I think that's a really large area for growth in WoW. It would be awesome to see them do it. I actually do like lots of the cosmetic sets for the Covenant, so I guess we're just different there, but cosmetics are cosmetics. That's kind of the point. We all have different opinions. Yeah. I think maybe for him, once class sets come back, and we do believe 9.2 will be class sets. It's not being confirmed, but they said they wanted to do them for Shadowlands, and they're not in 9.1, so I guess 9.2. Mm-hmm. But when those come back, it'll help a lot. As for systems, well, he's got here an example of something where you could use a token to convert a gray or white item into a cosmetic item. Which initially I read that and didn't understand it, but now that I've actually thought about it for a second, that the point there is having that more traditional feeling gear and being able to use that, because I kind of forgot you cannot transmog, can't transmog trash gear and white whites.
It needs to be bound to transmog.
So yeah, you know what? If you could just do that and be able to transmog a bit of grey gear into your character, awesome. That's more options for players, a bit more gameplay. So I'm totally down for that. I should say we have got the last free thinker himself, the very last one.
Yes.
No more. Apparently that. So I guess we're not free thinkers then.
Well, it depends. Maybe he came after, or they came after.
But regardless, a big thank you to the last free thinker for doing a super chat, helping us out. Also, HN, who sent a super chat over that does have it's actually not a super chat. It's a super sticker.
That's different. Question mark.
Yeah, we're in YouTube live streaming. So there you go. Hey, thank you. Appreciate it a lot, and thank you to everybody with the super chats today and just all that stuff. It's all awesome, and it does go straight back into the show because eventually these will be much nicer cameras, and even past this show. You know, we wish that we had one of our more out there, crazy, and I think really awesome lore videos out today. We had a little bit of a hitch. Yeah. It'll be Monday or Tuesday. But your support does allow for things like that to be possible, and believe me, we have very big plans for lots more.
Yep.
Which we shan't talk about because we do not want to sell people up the river.
Of course.
I believe is the phrase.
Yes, that's the phrase. Please send more super chats because then I can afford a way to cable manage all of this nightmare. Because that's what he means by going back into the show. You would not want to see anything behind here. It is an utter nightmare. Oh, Christ, I can't wait to get that sorted. Or are you going to try to show them? Don't do it. Don't do it. No. No, my greatest shame.
Well, no, it's not that. Oh. It's just, let's show them. Oh, yeah, so there's what's on the stream camera. All our prep food. Yeah. So then as I go around, so there's the set where our videos are done.
Yep.
And as you can see, everything is a mess. So that's what Matt refers to. Soon, I don't know if you guys can hear me, but soon what me and Matt's plan is to do a humongous sort of deep clean of this whole area and a reorg of everything, which we'll do at some stage. But yes, you can solve anything with cable ties. We do have, though, from Kay, we do have a super chat. Nice. Kay says, what do you think the next X-Pack will be? Is there a chance of there being more Azeroth stuff? And personally, they would love Dragon Isles with a new class. So, if I'm going to jump in, I'm going to jump in and say what my personal want is check out the clips channel because I'm pretty sure the clip from our last stream of that is going to go up there. But for me, it was like World of Warcraft, just Azeroth. So I agree with you. Now, my version of that was very much just Stormwind, Orgrimmar, Silvermoon, all the stuff. Let's focus on the factions, the peoples of Azeroth, their stories, their journeys, and really let's just take a little breather from all of this world-ending cosmic stuff to just live in Azeroth and grow and develop Azeroth. Now, if there was one that was centered around the Dragon Isles, or maybe if that sort of idea that I had would involve the Dragon Isles, awesome, I'm there. As for what I think the next one will be, it's really hard to say at this stage because it will be teased more through this expansion. Likely candidates include the Light.
Yes, please.
And the Cosmos.
Yes, please.
So if there's a Light expansion, maybe Ural is going to come and crush everybody's skulls.
Yes,
we have we've made a video about that probably. Yeah. Oh my god, that was a long time ago. Wow. Light, I think, is a big contender. I mean, Steve. Yeah. That was such a fun conversation with Steve and Morgan. Steve was very. I mean, it was very much just like, we put that URL stuff in there for a reason, of course, right. So. I'm really hoping for Light, and I think something could be there for Light. I don't officially cast my lot. I'm going to unofficially say Light is what I think will be the next direction.
Yeah, my takes, I don't think it'll be pure Light. I feel like it'll be Light heavy with some super other things. I don't know if that'll mean they'll go fully on the Light for like marketing, if they will just call it World of Warcraft Lightbound or whatever. Probably. So that's what I think, but something tells me that I don't know. I feel like they're going to try to throw a curveball at the end of this expansion in terms of where we're going next, which means I think it'll likely be more cosmological or a lot broader than we ever expected. Because it's like, I'm trying to think if this reminds me of a specific sci-fi show or something, but it's like, it feels like the Shadowlands is our first step into the cosmos, but we're not going to go on like this episodic journey of, we've done the Shadowlands. Where's next on the chart? It's light. Or, where we're going to go next? It's the Lifelands. It's going to be, you've seen a little bit of it. Well, we're going to take you like, you've glimpsed the next level. So we're just going to pick you up and set you on it. And we'll have like this higher level overview of everything. So I feel like they'll wrap up a lot of cosmic stuff pretty big. Or not maybe wrap up, but they'll, this was like the glass cracking, and I think the next expansion will be like breaking, because I don't think they'll go back to Azeroth anytime soon, although I'd love that, and I do want a light heavy expansion. I feel like we're in for something that's a bit more perception shattering to try and set up a larger thing.
Yeah,
I think
I just think that if they do that, I think I will enjoy where it's going. Pyromancer will enjoy where it's going. Tally will enjoy where it's going. Akalon will enjoy where it's going, because one thing that I think connects all four of us is we do enjoy going into the nitty gritty bits of the lore. But for lots of people, they experience that differently. And a lot of that cosmic shit can be very just like, whoa, I don't get it. This is a fantasy sort of game. I'm confused. This is weird and I don't get it. I worry that will happen if they go full Cosmos, and I actually suspect that they will do that and that a bunch of people will bounce off it. Because when Sylvanas kicked that shit out of Bolvar, just the basic like premise of Shadowlands actually seems to have lost a bunch of people. Like I remember that being surprisingly disliked.
Yes.
And stuff like that. And I just say, like, I think all of that cosmic stuff, that is such good subtext. Not subtext, that's not really what subtext means. That's good stuff that is under the surface and is like informing some of our characters and is like, I think it should remain spooky and unknowable while we go through more everyman journeys. So I'm like excited for the Cosmos stuff. I love science fiction. We can't talk about Game 2 yet. No. We can't talk about Game 2 because we can't talk about Game 1 yet either. I love all that stuff. And hey, maybe, maybe it won't be that. Who knows? But like, I love sci-fi. I love all that. I am the guy for whom a cosmic expansion would be like the thing. But even with that, I'm just a little bit worried that it would... And when I say go over people's heads, I do not mean that in a, you need to have a high IQ to enjoy Rick and Morty. I don't mean it like that. I mean it to go over people's heads because they're just not interested, right? Yeah. You give a bunch of... Often, give a bunch of fantasy people sci-fi stuff, and they're like, no, I don't care. So, yeah, interesting stuff. I mean, if it is a cosmic expansion, maybe I will be sitting there doing lore speculation videos that are actually more interesting than ever, but just for a smaller audience. And I mean, I'll still have fun, but I think go with caution into the great cosmic void beyond. Yeah, we'll find you in your underwear in the office at the whiteboard scrawling frantically. Probably. We've got another super chat from Enter Judas 1, who says, "How do you feel about the return of the Scarlet Crusade?" To which I say something along the lines of, "Hell yes, brother." Let's go. Oh, that would be perfect. It depends on how hammy they're willing to go. Because like I would love it to be completely like obviously framed seriously, but I'd love to just be complete balls to the wall. Like out of nowhere, the Scarlet just kick the, I guess Atris doesn't have doors, but just kick the doors of Atris down, kill Whitemane again, drag her body off to resurrect her as theirs again, and just wreck all the DKs. Like yeah, we're back. Fuck all of you. What if, you remember in Shadow Moon Valley, Velen does his sacrifice and all of the Draenei, I don't know, it's like their voltage is turned up. They all just kind of go whoosh, and they're surging with the light energy. So imagine, alternate universe Draenor Zira comes in. She's like, well, that Tyrallion guy, he likes a bunch of dickheads who are suspicious of the light now. But because the Scarlet Brotherhood is a secret clandestine organization that is the continuation of the Scarlets in the current timeline of the modern era of the game. What if you just see all of these like Scarlet Brotherhood people coming out of the woodwork? They're all empowered up by a Naru, and now we got the Scarlets back. I would love that as a part of a light expansion. It would be awesome. And the Scarlets they're just a great villain because they've actually got so much really cool lore and backstory. They're also, in a way, they're visually quite simple and understandable, but they do have that nice depth. They got the Dreadlords, they got all that jazz. And, they're these crazy anti-zombie extremists, and you kind of think, wow, zombies are bad. Why aren't we friends with them? Oh, wow, they're dickheads. They're just a good antagonist for a game like an MMO, especially where we found the Scarlets, of course, originally. Where it's about, the groups of people who exist in the world, and this is generally where I think MMO storytelling should be a bit more focused, where, it's about the nations of the world, the groups of people of the world, the massive story of this world that you are in as a player. And I just think the Scarlets are one of those groups who are so natural for that type of storytelling, and that is what I'd love to see more of. So I agree with your super chat.
I think that's like almost certainly going to be part of a light expansion. Maybe even the tease up to it. Because we land back in Azeroth after Shadowlands, and Tryon's like, boys, can I get you just 5 minutes sorting out the Scarlets here? And obviously we all go back. We're like, we were gone like 5 minutes. He's like, yeah. As soon as you went, they attacked. Don't know what's going on.
Yeah, that'll be neat stuff. So we do have, I believe, 1, and this is a good one. So Michael says in a super chat, thanks for the content. Do you think Classic Plus could ever retcon everything after Wrath and give us a new plot line for WoW, like a comic book? So I'd say that would be interesting, and there's a bunch of people who would definitely like WoW to become to not go in that very, we're going to dive super deep into our world building and the mechanics of it. I think a lot of people feel that WoW is rapidly approaching like a hard magic system where everything's very explainable and solvable, even though there are these great mysteries. And it's like, it's a hard magic system, but it's so tremendously old and deep and grand that it still feels like a soft magic system to us because we don't get it yet. But there's a lot of people who don't really like that direction of world building. So I think for a bunch of people, they would like that. I don't think it'll ever happen, but I do think something could happen. And we talked about this in the last episode, but my personal wish there was to just do a Classic Plus and just be like, the Burning Crusade, Classic is here. The Burning Crusade happens all the way over here. Let's just do cool stories in Azeroth. The last time I'd mentioned, the World of Warcraft, the booties of Pirate Bay. Yeah. Maybe let's not do that.
The booty of Pirate Bay.
Yes, the booty of Pirate Bay.
Booties mean something
Yes. Different. You know what? If we go on, I was going to say if you go onto Tumblr, maybe you could find that, but Tumblr purged all their not safe for work content long ago. Yeah. But, just that idea that you could, in the same way that Hearthstone will sit there and be like, hey, we're just going to theme it after Gadget-san. I feel like there's a way they could probably slip that into a Classic Plus where it could work, and we could get that, what year is Classic? What year is vanilla? Like in the actual timeline of WoW?
It's like
20, 30?
20, 30, something in that realm. It's because they use the ADP notation.
Yeah. So, in that case, if we could just have the few years that spans Classic, just give those few more years of Azeroth more and more and more content and features and stuff to do. That's what I'd love to see at Classic Plus.
25.
Do. Yeah, year 25. So let's just say it's, in year 25, there's all the stuff that happened, but also here's an expanded story in Booty Bay. Here's an expanded story in whatever zone or theme or anything. I think that would be so cool.
Yeah, the only problem we have is Burning Crusade is actually year 26, apparently. So we didn't actually have much time between. It was like we did, I'll throw up what I'm actually scrolling through. So here's year 25. We did all of this
It was a busy year.
in 1 year, and then Burning Crusade in 26. And then I think Wrath was... Wrath started in 26 as well. Years are pretty long in Warcraft.
Yeah, or even just doing a Classic Plus and being
Yeah.
like, look, this is us fleshing out the lore, treat it as soft canon, let's
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah, that'd be
honestly, let's just get some cool content. So that's what I'd love. And look, Classic Plus, because Classic Plus would give me the confidence that like you can stay there for the long haul and it's going to continue. Instant, I'd be there instantly.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah, it would be a cool idea. And look, I mean, Blizzard, you want money? Classic's going to run out someday. You can't just keep on resetting Classic all the time, right? So you're going to have to do a Classic Plus if you want the Classic segment of the business to keep on going. And I want that segment of the business to keep on going for you because maybe it could mean a Classic Plus. Because, I could very much enjoy having my super, I'm simming, I'm paying attention to my DPS, I'm doing my raids. I would be a very happy individual if I was engaging with those parts of Modern WoW that I really like, and then on the side was in some sort of Classic that I knew would be going the distance.
Yeah.
So, with that bombshell, we do have one final super chat, which is from Daniel Silva, who simply says, big fan of your work, Yes, big fan of, you and the team. Keep up the good work. Love the format. To which I say, thank you, Daniel.
Thank you very much.
We've really enjoyed putting this together. It's kind of funny. Like, I have no idea what the multicam setup of this show is inspired by. Some sort of thing. And
Who knows?
Why do we put this mug in the middle of the table?
Environmental storytelling.
And that's it. Yes.
Environmental storytelling.
So, we want to be better with our 3 cameras and how they cut and stuff like that. Because we do actually have an auto switcher based on volume, but sometimes you need the... So, we're just to say, thank you so much. And we are working in the format. So, yes, all good stuff. Oh, boy, 3 hours and 14 minutes. My voice box is extremely sore.
I'm not surprised. Not surprised at all.
So, I think that's probably going to be a good night from us.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
Yeah. All right. Good night, everyone.
Thank
Fun
you for
to
watching.
hang out. And tell you what, soon enough, it will be patch 9.1 data mining. And, we won't be kind of sitting here and having similar discussions every week. There soon will be, sexy new data minings going on and lots of big fun. And I guess that means we're going to have to prepare what the stream will actually look like, such that we can show off some data mining stuff good.
Yes. I'll get right on that tomorrow.
Yes. No, Saturday.
Oh, shit, so it is. I'll get right on that. I don't know.
We'll get on it Monday, and then it won't happen on Monday because we'll both be really busy, and then we'll do it, and then we'll end up doing it 30 minutes before the stream, and it'll be awesome.
Yes, we're definitely good at this. We're good at this.
Okay. If you'd like to support us and I know stuff to do afterwards, there is the Clips channel. So if you missed, if you missed stuff, what stuff? If you missed like most of this stream or other ones, we clip it all up. And the only other thing, I think it involves me traveling, which means I need to speak louder, which is going to hurt the voice box even more.
Yeah. So let's narrate Michael as he goes. And there's a bottle of water fell over. It's over to the sofa, and here he comes back.
Yes, these have arrived. There is actually, you know what? I can just hijack one of our cameras.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Good luck.
So I'm gonna hijack Matt's camera.
Bye.
Bye, Matt.
I'm obscured.
Everyone say goodbye to Matt.
At least that's not a sword that you're stabbing me with. Whoa, what's happening?
Oh.
Got it?
Oh. Hey.
He's got it. Nice.
That's our Patreon pin for this month. I've got to shout because I'm far away from the microphone. So that's what's going on there. Woo!
Yeah, that is the
look at it go.
That is the bow pin. You will get it from being a Master Tier patron this month. We'll ship that out to you next month, and it'll definitely be picked up by Royal Mail this time instead of them not doing that, even though we told them to and paid for it. Just
yeah,
cool.
We we end up having 6, mail bags, like the bags that the mailman has. we end up having six mailbags full, right?
Yep.
And what we're supposed to do is contact Royal Mail and just say to them, like, right, boys, here's 15 quid, come pick up our post. Because, we use the Royal Mail sort of click and drop is what they call it.
Yep.
We have ordered 4 pickups.
Yep.
They have failed 3 of them. Like, legit no show, no explanation. And that is one of the reasons why our Patreon delivery times have been not where I've wanted them to be. We've just lost multiple business days to Royal Mail not doing their job, which means that, from, I think, probably now on, or at least for the next little while, me and Matt are just going to do it manually because, I mean, it feels bad because ultimately we know that the person who really loses out is, is the good people who actually want to get their pin.
Yep.
Other things. Anyway, there's the Royal Mail saga. We've almost hit 3 hours and 20 minutes.
All right, so,
nice.
Yep. I think for real this time, we'll bid you adieu.
Yes. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
See you later.